Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, small law firm in central Minnesota. And with me today is a very special guest and longtime friend of the channel, Spectre Gaming. Spectre06 Gaming. How's it going, man?
I'm a friend now. Oh.
Friend of the channel. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Corporations are people too.
Got excited. Was like, oh, I have a friend finally. It only took 34 daggum years.
Yeah, no. We don't want to go that far. We don't want to give you any undue friendship. But no, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about the case of Justina Pelletier. Pelletier or Pelletier?
Pelletier, and I got a little afraid. I thought you were going to say we're going to talk about the case of the littlest umbrella, and I was about to leave the call right away.
You and your tug hate. How dare you, sir?
It's not hate.
You and your tug criticism.
Okay, we'll go with that. That's legitimate.
But anyway, no, we're not talking about the littlest umbrella. We're talking about Justina Pelletier, which some people may remember. The case of Justina Pelletier. Should I describe it, or you? How about I describe it? You fill in some holes if I miss something.
All right. I was going to make a joke there, but I decided to be the bigger person.
This is a serious topic. There are no jokes allowed on the stream or the show ever. It's never a comedy show.
Oh, okay.
Were you misled?
I may have been lied to.
My agent lied to you. My agent being me. No, so this is a case that started back in what? It was like 2013 is when the events took place. I believe
2013. Actually, I think it was 2014, wasn't it? It was February 2014.
Okay, so it took place in 2014. It got some traction with conservative groups. At the time it was getting traction, I believe, I was driving a lot and I listened to Glenn Beck on the radio, which is great.
That was your first mistake.
But Glenn was very much trying to publicize this, and I believe he was pimping the free Justina. There was like a GoFundMe or just a petition or something going around. And so he was a big advocate of Justina's at that time. That's the main reason I remember hearing about the case. But it's basically about the summary of events is a girl was taken from her parents by Boston Children's Hospital. And in the process of doing that, Boston did not administer care for a condition she was diagnosed by another doctor with this condition. They did not administer care because they disagreed with the diagnosis, and the parents were not allowed a say in their child's health care, which may have led to permanent damage suffered at the hands of this young lady.
It definitely looks like there's permanent damage involved. She is still, 6-7 years at this point. Come on, get down. She's still in a wheelchair.
The cat is PPPing the stream.
She is. She's being a little brat. But she is still in a wheelchair 6 years later. Come on, get down. She is. This is my baby cat. She will be making frequent appearances for attention. I get no say in the matter. But anyways, yes, she is in a wheelchair still 6 years later, which should go to show you how bad the care came from Boston Children's Hospital. She went from walking on her own to literally having to be pushed by her parents in a wheelchair 24/7.
Sure. And so the idea that Boston Children's had in taking this child from the parents stems from this idea of something called Munchausen by proxy, whereby a parent or caregiver basically imposes symptoms upon another person for, I guess, the psychological purposes of then the person needing them to provide care for them. So they create a need through creating an ailment. And Boston Children's, for some reason, determined that, which I think is going to be alleged in the lawsuit as to the reasons, right? If I remember correctly.
It's Munchausen by proxy is not just creating a dependency in the child on the parents. It's also a way to draw attention to you. Oh, my child is so sick. Pay attention to me. And you see this when they start shopping around to other hospitals, especially. Ken Jennings would be able to describe this a lot better than I could, because I just have a bachelor in arts and psychology that I barely use at this point.
Sure.
So, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's basically attention grabbing is really what it comes down to. You know, I'm going to really quickly let her out.
Get out, cat. Leave, cat.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
Just alinity the cat. That's what you should have done.
She actually got one of those a couple of days ago. I am not proud to admit this. She actually bit my hand. She was high on catnip and I was petting her and she bit my hand, so she went flying. It's okay. She landed on the bed.
Yeah.
Calm down, kids.
Alinity used the same excuse. She landed on knives. It's fine.
She got yeeted. But anyways, so it creates a dependency in the child, yes, but it also creates a sense of victimhood status. And it's not just that. The problem with it is that Munchausen by proxy overlaps a lot of other issues. Believe it or not, PTSD can manifest in symptoms that are very similar to Munchausen by proxy.
Sure.
There are cases where, like, a parent, like a child is born prematurely, and the mother, like, something triggers PTSD in her, and she becomes hyper vigilant with protecting the child. So it's not uncommon for psychiatrists to say Munchausen by proxy until they start talking more to the mother or the father and go, oh, you know, maybe the diagnosis was wrong. It's just Munchausen by proxy. When it comes to something like a child, you generally speaking tend to err on the side of, oh God, worst possible scenario for the safety of the child.
Right. So but the idea behind the taking of Justina from the parents was sort of a combination of this Munchausen by proxy, and also with the idea that the parents, shockingly, being frustrated with the hospital and therefore being labeled as angry and abusive. And
it wasn't just they eated their cats as well. Actually, there's a doctor who was the head of psychiatry, I believe, David DeMasso, at Boston Children's, who had recently done a book on psychiatric disorders in adolescents and children. And he put forth the argument that mitochondrial disorder does not exist, that it's completely a somatoform disorder.
Right.
So it's kind of, it's so coincidental that she would go to Boston Children's Hospital, where this doctor is the head of the psychiatry department, I believe. I could be wrong on that, because he wasn't named as a party to the suit, oddly enough. And he would say something like that, and then all of a sudden, I have a test subject. Let's cut her off from her support with her family, and let's treat it as if it was. And she kind of became a patient zero, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that's what we're gonna get into. I'm gonna put up the second amended complaint, because the reason we're talking about this is there's a current lawsuit going on right now. No, it's not current.
There was a ruling in February. Okay. It is supposed to be going to appeals.
Gotcha. Right. Okay. So this lawsuit was basically declined in February. The Pelletiers lost. Right? Is that how that worked? Okay.
Jury came back and said Boston Children's did nothing wrong. Now, I don't have the judgment itself, the ruling itself with me. But from what I was told, basically it was the hospital said, we have to look after the, children are our most valuable commodity. They are our most priceless possession. And a hospital, no matter what they do, is looking out for the child. And that's basically what happened. Is the jury agreed with them. I don't agree with them. I don't think you agree with them.
No.
But that's what the jury decided.
Yeah. So, but that is going to appeal. But we're going to look at the underlying complaint and take a look at this, and also just basically tell the story of Justina through through the lawsuit. And that's what tonight's about. It's a little bit different flavor than some of the recent shows, and I thought it'd be a nice change of pace to kind of go through this issue and maybe let people's blood boil a little bit over how much influence hospitals can have over families and how much deference they're given by juries, by court systems, by the people involved, by child protective services. As a parent, this is something that I worry about whenever our children have to go to a care provider for anything, is what if they think that I somehow did whatever and then my children could be taken away for something ridiculous. And that's one thing we're going to kind of look at here is there's really little to substantiate why they took Justina from the parents, why the custody of the parents was revoked. At the initial onset, they kind of try and justify it later, but we'll just kind of go through it. We got a couple chats to get started here. No one important. Yeah. No one important says my best friend that I made online, I found out is with ACAB. I think that's
all cops are bastards.
Oh, is that what it is? A girl I thought to be gentle and kind and loving was truly a shock to me, who tonight went on about how all cops need to be hurt or poisoned. Well, that's a bit extreme. And then follows with, I'm truly at a loss for words because of this revelation. The same girl who helped me through my lowest points in life was now saying cops deserve this and that without my input, I don't know what I will do anymore. Well, you don't, just because someone helped you through a part of your life doesn't mean that everything that they say has to be perfect for the rest of it. So don't just, you can either maintain contact with this person and ignore them on the issue, or you can not, because you're no longer at that point in your life where she was helpful. So
it's amazing how people's opinions can change on other people that they have known for their entire life. Right. I've got a friend who I have had since, he's still a friend of mine, but a couple of years ago, I'd say about 8 years ago, he and I had a huge fight. We're best friends. During our high school years, we'd spend like every weekend all, together. I'd go over to his house and sleep over Friday to Saturday. I'd go to temple with him because he's Jewish. I did that enough
it
that I
all makes sense now.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
But his rabbi said I went there enough that I was an honorary Jew. I actually said to Akiva Cohen, I guarantee you I've been to more Shabbat services in the last 10 years than you've been to in your entire life. I'm probably more Jewish than you. By the way, he was slightly nettled about that. But a couple of years ago, he and I had a little fight, and this is a 28-year-old guy who was living with his parents, had dropped out in the final term of college because he was having panic attacks. He wasn't paying rent. He's trying to pull a holier than thou with me, a guy who's living on his own, self-supporting and stuff like that. And it was just like, you see that type of person. It's like, as much as of a friend as they've been, you still respond to them because you have to.
Your involvement in this show is being questioned. Let me just address it. Spectre asked me to do the show about and also you have some connection to the state where this took place, where a lot of this took place.
I live in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. So Spectre's from Massachusetts. We've talked about this case several times and decided to do a show on it. That's about the end of the consideration that went into it. So
yeah, I pitched this idea shortly after COVID quarantine started. I said, hey, have you heard about this case? Nick was like, I remember this situation. I'm like, did you know there's a lawsuit? Nick's like, there is not. there is not. Get me the paperwork and we will do a show. And 3 months later, I finally got the paperwork from actually Justina's lawyers.
Yeah, COVID kind of slowed down the acquisition of that. We were going to do the show a while back, but that's how it Crumb. That's how it goes. So like Sriracha with Russell Greer, and again, a week from today will be the next Greer stream with Sriracha. That will
I'm
be
excited.
me too. Me too. I love that weird mouthed idiot. We've got that. I guess I should talk about that. I believe Drexel is coming out tomorrow, so we'll probably have some Drexel streaming tomorrow and or Friday. And then next week we're gonna have some different stuff happening. Wednesday is gonna be a big day for me next week. I'm gonna be on Az's show. Az from, he's like friends with Geeks and Gamers and all that stuff, and we're gonna be doing Warhammer mini painting. That's gonna be like in the midday time around noon Central. We'll be painting some minis with Az on his show, and then my show, of course, will be the Russell Greer stream. And between that, I'm gonna have live chat Wednesday. So yeah, Heel versus Babyface is his channel, I believe. And so we're going to have a lot of fun on Wednesday of next week as well. But that's kind of a preview. I think I have something on Monday, but I don't remember what it is. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'll figure it out later. Oh, and for the stream.
That's kind of tease.
Yes, it's something. And for the stream, I've got this new bottle of scotch that I picked up today. This is an 18-year Oban. So I'm looking forward to drinking it. I've only ever had their 14-year, which is like the normal bottle. So
I've stopped drinking because I had like 3 gin and not vodka and tonics before the show. So it's like at some point my liver is going to revolt.
It should. Hopefully
it should.
On the show, I think that'd make for good ratings.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, then you can all make jokes about me not holding my liquor and stuff. Yep.
Yes. Before we fully get into the show, I just want to mention to the chat a couple things, housekeeping things. One, I'm going through a lovely period that happens on YouTube. It's called subscriber burn. And that is where YouTube determines that every time I upload a video, that some people in my audience should be unsubscribed from my channel. I'm not making this up. That's just how it goes. I was kind of suspicious. It's been going on for about a week now. It'll probably go on for the next week. So that is only mentioned to say, if you see this video, make sure you check and see if you're subscribed, because YouTube does this thing. I don't know why they do it, but upon uploading a video earlier today, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, the moment I made it a public video as opposed to unlisted, I lost 25 subscribers, the exact instant. So I'm pretty sure several people did not band together to determine that they should all cancel their or unsubscribe from me on YouTube at that point. And considering every time I've done a stream this week, there's an immediate loss and then it ticks back up over the next several hours. It's just a time. It happens every couple months with creators on YouTube, and it's great. Speaking of which, I did a video earlier today that I want to mention, and it is about the Rayshard Brooks. I don't know how to say his name. I'm saying Rayshard Brooks shooting down in Atlanta, Georgia. This is where 2 police officers conducted a stop and a field sobriety test on someone, and then when they decided to arrest him, he decided to resist arrest, grabbed the cop's taser, runs away, but then turns and fires a taser at the pursuing cop. And then the other cop opened fire and ended up killing him. You can go check that video out if you want. It is demonetized. And I have
so surprised.
I have a great quote, because sometimes YouTube provides you actual feedback as to why it's demonetized. You guys want to hear this? If you want to hear YouTube's position on these issues, I can't sum it up better than this. Hold on, let me pull it up. This video is not suitable for full monetization and thus received the yellow dollar sign because of the depiction of a violent altercation amid police brutality. So,
but I thought Black Lives Matter. Why are you saying that a black man being unceremoniously shot and killed by police, showing police brutality, is not worth making money off of? Man, that seems pretty racist.
It is racist, but it's also funny because they assume that in the same police brutality, it's like those guys were some of the weakest brutalizers I've ever seen. They don't strike him until the shots are fired. It's actually a relatively violence-weak encounter. It was kind of crazy. So so there you go. That's the reasoning from YouTube for the demonetization. So
Atlanta cops are actually walking out. They're not responding to calls. They're calling in and saying they're not showing up. The mayor of Atlanta has actually begged surrounding communities to send police to Atlanta. And those communities have said, no, we're not sending our cops to Atlanta. So like you go to Reddit and whatnot and look at this, and it's a bunch of people who are saying in other threads, all cops are bastards. They're then turning around and going, look at all these police acting like children because Atlanta is going to be defunding them and stuff. You know, they should be doing this for free. Stuff like that. It's like, cause and effect. You want to defund them. You want to take away their funding. Well, those cops are going to be like, you know what? I'm not doing it.
Yep. It's crazy. And when you start peeling back the onion, you'll see that DA has some issues, and he is almost certainly making these charges to make political statements. The police department, for what it's worth, you know, the police officers aren't showing up. Their department did fire the guy, though, and he probably should not have been fired. He should have. Well, the one was on administrative leave, and he is not fired. He has also agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. The partner has. It's the first time ever in Atlanta that a police officer has testified against his partner. But he will be testifying on behalf of the state. And he was not fired. He was put on an administrative leave. I wouldn't want to be that. That guy's going to have a hard time being a cop after this.
Yep.
But this is, you guys know me. I'm not a big fan of cops, and I'm not a fan at all of police violence. But I watched that video several times, and I cannot see with the law as it is, that it's not justified. It maybe shouldn't be justifiable, but it is justifiable under the law. So pretty interesting case.
It's actually funny because the DA, when he said he was pressing charges, the reason he's doing it is because he says under Georgia law, a taser is not considered a lethal weapon. When actually in Georgia law, I believe it says the exact friggin' opposite. So he's trying to pull the Jay Sean Lemoyne. The law says this, but I'm going to say it says the exact friggin' opposite. And I don't know if you've ever been hit by a taser.
No, I'm
pleasant.
I'm not.
Pleasant.
I'm not. I've not subjected myself to it. Real quick, I want to clarify. The lawyer for the other cop has come out and said that he is not agreeing to testify against his partner. So I apologize for spreading fake news that's all over the media. But I'm glad that he's not going to testify against him. In this case, he really did not act outside of the law. Sorry, you were saying that the taser in Georgia is classified as a lethal weapon, correct? As a deadly weapon.
Yes, it can be because it's an electrical current. What happens if somebody has a pacemaker, right? That could impact the pacemaker. That can cause an arrhythmia. That can cause a heart attack. That can cause you to fall down, crack your head open on the side of the sidewalk. You don't know what's going to happen. It's less than lethal because the primary outcome is not to kill. It is to render helpless and subdue. But that doesn't mean that it's going to, it's 100% effective in not going to kill you.
Right. The other interesting thing, this is a statute I found after I did the video. So it's not in there, thank God. No, I'm just kidding. It should be in there, but it's not. There's a statute that if you are in possession of a firearm or other deadly weapon or other weapon, like a knife or something like that, it aggravates any assault and raises the penalty for the assault. And in the definition of the statute, tasers are included specifically in the definition of a firearm. So Georgia definitely regards tasers as an elevated class of weapon. And I think based on the law as it's written, all of the actions end up being justified. And again, I wish the cops did not shoot the guy. Like, I wish they didn't. But I think that they're justified in doing so. So that's how it goes, It's not a fun case. But anyway, so you can check out my video on that if you want, or don't. It's not monetized, so I'm not trying to make money off of it, but I would like people to be able to talk with education about the incidents. You get to watch the whole thing unfold, and we go through the statutes that are relevant on there. So so there's that. Let's get into this. Let's get into this Pelletier case. Pelletier. What do you think? What's the ruling on that?
I'm pretty sure it's Pelletier.
Okay.
It's like one of the few French names where IER, the R is not silent.
Okay, so Pelletier. Got it. Okay, I'm going to pull this up on screen. There we go. You guys should see it over the top of the chat window there. It is there, so we can kind of go through this together. I don't want to spend too much time on the plaintiffs and defendants. I thought we'd just kind of get into the facts of the case.
Right.
And then we'll do that, and then we'll have after we go through that, we'll have fun time and make fun of people or whatever. Okay. Facts. Mitochondrial disorder is an inherited. So should we alternate reading paragraphs or something? Would that work? I hate reading something and having the other person just sit there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll start then on 13. You have this pulled up?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Mitochondrial disorder is an inherited chronic illness that can be present at birth or develop later in life. Fun. It causes debilitating physical, developmental, and cognitive disabilities with symptoms including poor growth, loss of muscle coordination, muscle weakness and pain, seizures, vision and or hearing loss, gastrointestinal issues, learning disabilities, and organ failure. The disorder is progressive and there is no cure. You could do the next couple.
There's no cure for it. It's, from what I've been told, it's like having a permanent flu. You're constantly lethargic. And this is part of why getting the flu when you have a mitochondrial disorder is so life-threatening, because not only are you dealing with the reduced energy production of the mitochondrial disorder, but then you have this virus that comes in and does the exact same thing on top of it. So it's, if you've ever had the flu, it's very difficult to move. When you have the flu, from what I understand, you have to be put on a ventilator. It becomes borderline impossible to even breathe. That's how bad the flu is with mitochondrial disorder.
Gotcha. So do you want to take like 14 and 15?
Sure. It is estimated that 1 in 4,000 people has mitochondrial disorder. Mitochondrial disorder is a disease of the mitochondria, quote, the powerhouse of the cell, unquote, which generates the energy that powers cell and organ function. When the mitochondria do not function properly, organs stop working effectively.
There you go. The severity of symptoms is different from person to person and may involve any combination of a variety of body systems, including the brain and muscles, causing poor stamina, altered muscle tone, muscle weakness, seizures, stroke-like episodes. So if you're a male, it turns you into a beta. Autonomic nervous system, which involves temperature dysregulation, heart rate abnormalities, dizziness, poor heat and or cold tolerance. Oh, wait, maybe I have this.
You might have mitochondrial disease.
Oh, no! It's the beta disorder.
Oh, no. Freaking the Mayo Clinic's going to take you away from your parents.
Too much / too little sweating, skin pallor. I'm just pale because I don't go outside enough. But I don't sweat too much or too little. So no. Eyes, vision loss, hearing deficit, endocrine disease, heart, cardiomyopathy, liver dysfunction or cirrhosis, kidneys failure, and metabolic issues. Common symptoms include poor growth, loss of muscle control, muscle weakness, neurological problems, autism and autistic-like features, developmental delays and learning disabilities, heart disease, autonomic dysfunction, gastrointestinal disorders, and severe constipation, which sounds terrible to me.
Literally full of shit.
Yeah, maybe.
Really.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to start making fun of people off the cuff yet. Not yet.
Look, I'm not going to stop you.
Okay, go ahead.
Mitochondrial disorder can sometimes be diagnosed with DNA testing and muscle biopsy. However, it is widely known and accepted in the medical community that a negative test result does not rule out the disorder, as such testing is not reliable for that purpose. Kind of like COVID.
In the absence of positive DNA testing or muscle biopsy for mitochondrial disorder, the diagnosis is made based on family medical history, the patient's medical history, and the patient's signs and symptoms.
I believe it does come up later, but I believe that one of Justina's sisters, I think her older one, actually has it as well.
Right. And since it is it's hereditary or it's genetic, then it stands to reason that she would have a higher likelihood of having it.
Right, but it's so uncommon that doctors, they might see, okay, the sister has it, and then they would see the younger one has it. And she was like, 10 or 11 or something like that when this started. And they might go, okay, maybe, they would look at that and go, okay, maybe this younger child is just upset over the attention that her older sister is getting, and she wants to get that attention as well. So, but that's neither here nor there right now.
Right. Although you mentioned it's pretty rare, but 1 in 4,000 isn't that rare. Like it's, I have narcolepsy, which is 1 in 50,000. So I'm more special than mitochondrial disorder, for example.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
You mean, okay. You mean like a special snowflake. Okay.
Yeah. What did you mean?
Okay. Look, we're not going to go into that right now.
Rude.
Hey, I said we're not going to go into that. If you're taking that in the negative light, that's on you. You should stop reading into things, even though you're a lawyer. That's what you're supposed to do.
It's your fault that your husband beats you.
Exactly. I mean, I don't have a husband who beats me, but still.
Oh, you're not married? That's a shame.
Oh, it's
Go ahead.
The confirmed diagnosis of a sibling greatly enhances the statistical probability that an individual who exhibits signs and symptoms of mitochondrial disorder has the disorder. Such a diagnosis confirms that one or more of the parents carries the genes for the disorder and their offspring may inherit it. I think when the first child is confirmed to have mitochondrial disorder, yes, at least one of the parents carries the genes.
Or, in the alternative, the man that the mother is with that is not the father may also carry the gene. If
Fair
Drexel
enough.
were here, look, I feel like without Drexel present, we have to sometimes make the points that he would make. And that would be, if the dad's a cuck, it might be that the other man has it. No, I of course I'm kidding. Patients with mitochondrial disorder often present with gut dysmotility, a condition in which the muscles of the digestive system become impaired and changes in the speed, strength, or coordination of the digestive organs occur. In the normal small intestine, liquefied food and secretions, including digestive enzymes, are pushed onwards by waves of muscular contraction. When these contractions are impaired, the contents are trapped and cause distension with symptoms such as bloating, nausea, vomiting, severe constipation, and even malnutrition. That just does not sound.
That's what Pepto's for.
Yeah, you got to just drink some X-Lax, and do you do intestinal massaging? Like, is that a thing? I think that is a thing. I don't know if it's a treatment for this.
I've never looked into it. I've never had a reason to look into it, so
I don't know either. But those weird like holistic masseuses, they're like, oh look, I can cure this if we do this, and then next thing you know, they got their finger in your belly button. And it's never happened to me, though. But it's possible.
Sure.
Anyway, so wait, it's your turn. Justina Pelletier's Pelletier.
Yes.
Pelletier. I've got to say it right. Justina Pelletier's medical history. Okay, go ahead.
In 2011, Justina Pelletier was a 12 to 13-year-old child. It's not good when you don't know the exact age of the child in that year, but hey, what are you going to do?
She changed ages in that year. She went from 12 to 13.
Well, you could probably freaking, point to, okay, she went in when she was 12 and say that. I'm just saying, on the stand, I'm thinking a lawyer would be like, well, what was she, 12 or 13?
I do not recall.
Can I choose or?
Go ahead. Yeah. How about or?
With a complex medical history, which included but was not limited to left parieto-occipital stroke, neonatal or childhood, long-term gastrointestinal issues, gut dysmotility, cardiac issues, tachycardia, urological issues, urinary and fecal incontinence, dystotomia, don't know what the hell that is, right hemiparesis, dysfunctional menstrual bleeding, colonic neuropathy, muscle weakness, progressive fatigue and pain, chronic constipation, dysmenorrhea. That sounds contagious and also like an STD. Esophageal reflux, special learning abilities, and alopecia. Her treatment history included laparotomy, lysis of a congenital band, nasogastric intubation, and appendectomy.
I'm going to need a definition on at least 8 of those words immediately.
Look, I'm not telling you what dysfunctional menstrual bleeding is, damn it.
Yeah, that's... What's dysautonomia?
I will look it up while you.
Okay, I'll read the next couple because they're short ones. By 2011, on a scale of 1 to 10, how old are you? By 2011, Justina Pelletier's sister had been diagnosed with mitochondrial disorder. Muscle biopsy had been performed and showed a respiratory chain defect. In 2011, Justina was experiencing signs and symptoms, including fatigability, gut dysmotility, and autonomic symptoms, including tachycardia. And in 2011... go ahead. Yeah.
Dysautonomia. Look, we're just going to call it dysautonomia. Affects the flow of blood through the body, thereby causing dizziness when standing. So basically, it makes it easier to suffer from vertigo.
Yeah. I know like 8 people with this based on the symptoms. In 2011, Justina presented to Tufts Medical Center in Boston, Massachusetts with pain, weakness, fatigability, some loss of speech, constipation, and other symptoms consistent with mitochondrial disorder. The treatment team at that time could not identify a unifying diagnosis or an organic cause of the pain. So
it should be noted that the 2 hospitals that are at the center of this, Tufts Medical and Boston Children's, which falls under the Harvard Medical, are some of the premier teaching schools within the United States. They've got huge reputations. They get a lot of grants from both the state and federal government. So the doctors there are generally renowned for being experts in their fields because they're also professors. So when you have one of these hospitals who's saying X, generally speaking, you listen to what that hospital is saying. The problem with this, and you'll see this in a bit, is Tufts and Harvard go at one another, and they're Harvard's really talking past Tufts, the doctor from Tufts. So that's why Massachusetts really gives Harvard the benefit of the doubt, because they're a huge draw for the state.
Is Tufts in Connecticut?
I believe they have an outlying medical center in Connecticut, but I believe the main is in Boston. Let me look.
Yeah, because Tufts or the Pelletiers are from Connecticut, right?
Yes.
Yes. They're from Connecticut, and yeah, let's see.
Okay, so there's Boston.
I didn't know if Tufts was in a different state than Massachusetts. This O-Band is pretty delicious, I'm gonna say. I wasn't a big fan of the O-Band 14. The 18's good. Overall, it's not my favorite type of scotch, but it is. I'm not arguing with it.
What was where did we end?
The R in now someone's saying the R in Pelletier is silent, but I don't think it is.
Well, they can shut their whore mouth. It's like one of the few French words, like French names, where the R isn't silent at the end of it. Let's see. I think I scrolled down a little too much. Where did we end? Did we end at 24th?
You're at 20. You're on 25.
Okay. The treatment team initially suspected that Justina's symptoms may have been psychiatric in nature and caused or contributed to by her parents' belief that Justina's symptoms were real and medically caused rather than imaginary and caused by psychiatric delusion. Okay, I read that and I got confused. I'm like, wait, are they saying that it was? But and by their actively seeking medical treatment for her symptoms. In response to this suspicion, they filed a claim of abuse and neglect similar to those required by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 119, Section 51 Alpha, with the Connecticut Department of Children and Families. So they filed a claim of abuse under Massachusetts General Laws with the Connecticut Department of Children and Families.
So Tufts did.
Tufts did. It's again, mitochondrial disease. You have one child that has it, suddenly a second child has it, and the parents seem very up in arms or very pushy on that. You just to cover your ass. It's kind of like ask forgiveness later if you're wrong. You file the 51A just to, because every doctor in Massachusetts, in fact all over the country, is a mandated reporter. If there's any abuse, there's a suspicion of abuse, they have to report it. They have to make the report, because if they don't, they gape wide for that incoming lawsuit. That's how it works. So they filed with Connecticut.
Gape wide for it, huh?
Oh yeah.
What have you been searching on the internet, Spectre?
Look, we all saw what Preston Poulter took.
Ooh. The team also convened a family meeting with the Pelletiers and advised them of the Connecticut abuse and neglect report. The team, recognizing that the suspicion of a psychiatric disorder, specifically somatoform, was not the only possible cause of Justina's symptoms, recommended that the family consult with Mark Corson, MD, a mitochondrial disorder specialist, to investigate the possibility of mitochondrial disorder, and that Justina engage in therapeutic treatment and counseling on a regular basis. Go ahead.
The family wasn't happy about the suspicion of neglect and abuse, because every family would be very upset if they were accused of abusing their child if they loved them.
Yes.
However, they recognized that the medical advice was appropriate. The claim was investigated by the Connecticut Department of Children and Families. That's important. Remember that. Connecticut investigated this and determined it to be unsubstantiated. This was a full 2 to 3 years before Harvard got involved.
Right. This is still 2011. And this case really starts springing up around 2014. The actual 2014. Yeah. Okay.
There was no probable cause to believe that Justina had been neglected or abused. The Connecticut case was closed.
The family, despite their displeasure with the accusation of abuse and neglect, was educated by the treatment team about the psychiatric and emotional challenges faced by children with mitochondrial disorder. All you. This is a long one.
Oh, yeah. About time.
Can you do it?
I don't know. Let me get my spelling for Marines MCI out. In 2011, based on the suggestion of the Tufts Medical Center team, Justina began treating with Mark Corson, MD. Dr. Corson is a board-certified clinical biochemical genetics physician, which means he works for the Umbrella Corporation. And at the time, he was the chief of metabolism clinic at Tufts Medical Center. Dr. Corson is universally recognized as an expert in clinical practice for patients with mitochondrial disorder. Dr. Corson is presently the medical director of the Genetic Metabolic Center for Education and is responsible for overseeing both the company's consultative services and educational content, together with a team of biochemical geneticists. You are not helping me not believe that he does not work for the Umbrella Corporation. Prior to holding this position, Dr. Corson launched the Metabolic Outreach Service at Tufts Medical Center to aid area teaching hospitals lacking metabolic services. This program educated and advised non-metabolic clinicians, enabling a greater participation in the care of metabolic patients. Prior to holding that position, he directed the Metabolism Clinic at Boston Children's Hospital. Since 2007, he has co-directed the North American Metabolic Academy, the premier training conference for genetic trainees on this continent, sponsored by the Society for Inherited Metabolic Disorders. He has given hundreds of lectures in the U.S. and abroad, including Cyprus, Great Britain, Israel, Jordan, Malaysia, and most recently, the Republic of Georgia.
Not the Atlanta, Georgia, though.
Yeah, I was going to make a Rashad joke, but I decided
they need to make a new Republic of Georgia within Atlanta, like the Chaz. That's what they need to do.
Don't give them ideas, please.
I'll take the next two because this one's one line. Dr. Corson ultimately diagnosed Justina with mitochondrial disorder. So a guy who's a literal genetic specialist who specializes in mitochondrial disorder diagnoses her with the disorder. And that's important as we get to and I know this part of the facts section is a little slow moving, but as we get to the Boston Children's, they're going to disagree with a renowned expert.
And remember, Dr. Corson was with Boston Children's Hospital prior to moving over to Tufts. So the doctors at Boston Children's knew him.
Right.
When he said something, you think they would have gone, maybe we should listen to this guy. He might know what he's talking about.
No, he's in a different union now. During that time, Justina was suffering from consistent severe gastrointestinal pain and constipation, which is a common sign of mitochondrial disorder. Justina's dysmotility had been being treated by Alejandro Flores, MD. Dr. Flores was at the time the chief of pediatric gastroenterology and nutrition at Tufts Medical Center and associate professor at Tufts University School of Medicine. He is a graduate of the Universidad de San Carlos de Guatemala School of Medical Sciences, and received. I love.
Excuse me.
I love all of the Spanish names here, and is a received graduate training at Baylor College of Medicine, Children's Hospital, Boston / Harvard Medical School, Duke University Medical Center, Hospital Militar. Holy shit.
Holy shit hospital.
Yakaltenango Hospital.
It's a Catholic hospital.
Roosevelt Hospital in Guatemala, and the World Health Organization / UNICEF. Dr. Flores is board certified in pediatric gastroenterology and pediatrics and worked to support metabolic and mitochondrial patients with GI dysfunction. At or around the time of the events which give rise to the plaintiff's claims, Dr. Flores had moved his practice to Boston Children's Hospital. Dr. Flores continues to practice at Boston Children's Hospital, and he is currently the director and chair of ambulatory community services and an associate physician for motility and gastrointestinal disorders. He is also a clinical professor of pediatrics for Harvard Medical School.
So her primary doctor went over to Boston Children's Hospital. Children, pay attention to this. It does come up again. Throughout the course of his career, Dr. Flores has lectured and educated medical professionals about the concerns and dangers of mistaking dysmotility and other gastrointestinal disorders for psychiatric conditions such as Munchausen by proxy, and conversely, the need for diligence in investigating that possibility when a patient presents with complicated gastrointestinal dysfunction. I'm starting to stop talking.
In 2012, following an extensive review of Justina's pertinent medical history, medical records, and family history, Dr. Flores advised Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier that Justina needed to have a cecostomy tube surgically placed. A cecostomy tube, or C-tube, is a thin, soft plastic tube that is put into the large bowel through a tiny hole in the abdomen. The C-tube allows the patient to put a flushing irrigating solution directly into the bowel. The solution flushes the stool out through the anus. So it's like an enema that goes in through your stomach rather than through your butt.
Pretty much.
Justina's family consented to the surgical placement of a cecostomy bag by Dr. Flores based on his medical advice. The procedure, performed in April 2012, was successful and effective. That's what you need after like severe heroin use as well.
I'll take your word for it. Justina has also been seeing cardiologist Elisa Nix, MD, at Tufts Medical Center for nearly a year, since March 22nd, 2012. Dr. Nix noted that Justina suffered from a common manifestations of mitochondrial disorder. That is improper English.
Come on, guys. Get it together.
Right. Who wrote this? Ty Beard. Specifically, a trend towards postural tachycardia, and that she occasionally had heart pounding after minimal activity, which is an appropriate hyperadrenergic. I'm just going to go with adrenal response. Dr. Nix was successful. Yeah. They just wanted to throw a word in there to make them sound smarter and, make us feel dumber.
Make you feel dumber.
It worked.
I can pronounce adrenergic.
Wow. But you couldn't pronounce colostomy.
Nope.
Where was I? Was successful in addressing these issues, and as of October 23rd, 2012, Justina's cardiac issues were improved. Dr. Nix graduated from the University of Virginia Medical School in 1999, and thereafter completed postgraduate training at University Hospital in Cleveland, Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital, Columbia University, Stanford University, and UCal. Dr. Nix was and is board certified in pediatrics and pediatric cardiology.
Dr. Corson Dr. Flores and Dr. Nitsch were not the only specialists from Tufts Medical Center who treated Justina for the various presentations of her mitochondrial disorder. From December 7, 2011 until January 28, 2013, she was seen by a number of highly qualified, experienced doctors at Tufts Medical Center, all of whom were aware of the concerns raised, but disproved earlier about somatization and the potential neglect, and continued to treat Justina medically for her mitochondrial disorder appropriately and in accordance with the standard of care, including Jeremy Weigel, MD, Chief Pediatric Urology, Carl Christian A. Jackson. His name is Carl Christian A. Jackson.
That's hyphenated.
He has a hyphenated first name.
How pretentious do your parents have to be to hyphenate your first friggin' name?
And that guy has four first.
I hope he was bullied every day in school.
That guy has 4 first names. He's an extra serial killer. He's the Dexter. He kills the serial killers, I think. Carl Christian,
the people that kill the serial killers.
Right. That's only people with 4 first names kill serial killers. Carl Christian A. Jackson, pediatric surgeon. Stuart V. Braun, MD, Chief Pediatric Orthopedics and Orthopedic Surgeon, and David Greismer, MD, Neurologist.
Each of these providers recognized the working diagnosis of mitochondrial disorder and treated Justina's physical symptoms prior to her admission at Boston Children's. They were aware of her physical symptoms, her family dynamics, her prescribed medications, and the intense psychiatric and emotional strain she endured while suffering from a chronic illness and severe pain. None of the providers who treated and evaluated her regularly ever took any steps which could ultimately result in the termination of Justina's relationship with her parents as a means of treatment. Also known as, none of them thought that she was suffering from Munchausen by proxy.
So Sharon Young in the chat basically says adrenergic is not equal to adrenal, by the way, educating us, saying adrenergic equals relating to or denoting nerve cells in which epinephrine, adrenaline, norepinephrine, noradrenaline, or a similar substance acts as a neurotransmitter. So there you go, guys. I still don't know what that means because I'm a lawyer and I pay other people to know what that means. Justina was regularly treated for her psychological and emotional concerns by Dean T. Hokinson, PhD of Clinical Associates of Greater Hartford, LLC. Dr. Hokinson graduated with honors with an AB in psychology from Duke University in 1967. What's an AB?
I don't know.
It's like maybe it's like the predecessor to a BA, like an arts of bachelor's, whatever. That's a weird artistic bachelor's, I guess, but that would be a bachelor of arts, a BA. So an AB,
Bachelor of Arts in Psychology.
An AB in psychology from Duke University in 1967. He earned his PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Texas in 1971. By the way, look at this slacker typing here. Since there was a period after PhD, it capitalized the in. That should not have been capitalized. They should have their case dismissed for that alone. In clinical psychology from the University of Texas in 1971, he completed a full-time pre-doctoral internship at the Institute of Healthy Living in Hartford, Connecticut, a 2-year postdoctoral program in psychoanalysis and psychotherapy at New York University from 1971 to 1973, and a postdoctoral program at the Summer Institute on Family Therapy at the prestigious Ackerman Family Institute in New York City. He was the chief psychologist at the Newington Children's Hospital from 1971 to 1974, and he was then elevated to the position of Assistant Hospital Administrator for Patient Services. He has been an adjunct faculty member for the University of Hartford since 1971, meaning he gets about $2,000 a year because adjuncts are not people. Teaching introductory psychology, child development, assessment and intelligence testing, adolescent psychology, and motivation and emotions. He has been a clinical psychologist with Clinical Associates of Greater Hartford, LLC, for many years, treating thousands of children and adolescents. He performs clinical and independent medical examinations for multiple facilities. He has treated Justina since 2006, and she has been his full-time patient since 2011. Can I take a moment and say how much I hate doctors? It doesn't, right? All of them. It's like, oh, well, they won 17,000 awards for all of their research work. It's like, what the hell? Like, doctors have a resume building education. And I think it's all just a lie.
And they all have the exact same thing. They have that I love me wall where they put every freaking award they've ever had behind their desk. They have like the pictures their parents used to put on the fridge from preschool back there. Like, oh man, look, I was a special child back then too. No, you weren't.
Yeah.
You weren't.
I don't even like doctors. I don't think they're people at all.
That's okay. Doctors would think that an attorney is people either.
Attorneys aren't people. Attorneys are disgusting motes of digestive refuse.
You're not wrong.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Hokanson is intimately familiar with Justina's complex medical history and the concerns of somatization. I don't think that's the proper word, but I could be freaking wrong.
Somatization.
Which were previously considered but not substantiated. Dr. Hokanson expressly rejected the diagnosis of somatization and or Munchausen by proxy and was actively treating Justina for a dysthymia. Now I can't talk.
I hate the Marines.
It's okay. We get that a lot. Usually when we're committing war crimes on innocents, which is a persistent depression that is frequently present in children who suffer from chronic debilitating illness.
You've got another sentence there. It's just separated by it.
The defendant's negligence in violation of the rights of Justina and her parents.
There you go. On Tuesday, February 5th, 2013, 14-year-old Justina Pelletier was brought by her parents to the emergency department of Connecticut Children's Medical Center with leg weakness and pain, progressing over the last few months. Lethargy, malaise, speech difficulty, worsening over the last few weeks, increased alopecia to the head and headache. Justina was noted to have a history of mitochondrial disorder, stroke as a toddler, and that she was being followed at Tufts Medical Center. By the way, it's not paranoia if it's true. She was actually being followed. She was admitted to neurology for further workup, who concluded that her gait abnormality is strongly suggestive of non-organic cause.
I don't know if that means there was a psychological issue or if they're saying that maybe some kind of like heavy metal toxicity. I never actually looked into that, but I guess they're saying it's not a bacteria or a virus that was causing it. So it was probably either psychological or it was a man-made cause for it.
By the way, I just want to point out, dysthymia is persistent mild depression, by the way. Thank you, Sharon Young, for having all these answers. Alopecia is hair loss. Really, it's almost like she should be doing this stream rather than me.
If you've seen pictures of Justina now, there is significant hair loss. It's pretty bad. It seems to have stopped, but you can still see it.
So yeah, go ahead and continue there.
Following testing and consultation with Dr. Grissomer and Dr. Corson, who confirmed that they were in agreement with the diagnosis of mitochondrial disorder based on Justina's clinical picture and positive family history, neurology discharged Justina on February 8, 2013 in stable condition with a plan for follow-up in Boston. So she was in the hospital for 3 days, and they said, okay, she's stabilized, you can take her home.
Right. On Saturday, February 9th, 2013, Justina returned to the emergency department of the Connecticut Children's Medical Center with, quote, likely mitochondrial abnormality, dehydration, and difficulty taking fluids. A plan was made for IV fluids, check labs, and transfer. According to the records, Justina was, quote, accepted to Boston Children's for further workup of mitochondrial disease.
Dr. Corson, the reason that she wasn't admitted to Tufts, I believe, is because Dr. Corson was currently on assignment to Boston Children's. They had just received a grant, and Dr. Corson was asked to come in to head up the group that was in charge of that grant. So that's why they sent her to Boston Children's. I know one of her doctors, who was normally at Tufts, was like, for lack of a better term, TAD to Boston Children's, and that's why they sent her there.
Architect of Fate is saying that non-organic causes a euphemism for physical abuse.
Okay.
But if it is, they didn't actually report it. So that's I don't know if that's actually true. So that's interesting. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, neither one of us is a doctor, and we are just.
I am a doctor. Speak for yourself. I'm a doctor of law. Thank you very much.
Yes, you have a doctorate in bullshit. We know.
Please don't disrespect my education. Thank you. It's the same as a doctor who spends 12 years. I spent, like 3.
Yeah, I mean, we're just making these assumptions based on, context. So if we're wrong, feel free to, tell me that we're wrong, or tell us that we're freaking idiots and correct us. I don't think either one of us is going to cry too much tonight when you do so.
You'll cry.
Look, I said too much. I did qualify that.
Did you see? This is off topic, but I'm drinking now, so we're in the good space. Did you see Ron Toye crying? My dad said something bad about Black Lives Matter and block him on Facebook.
It's almost like a certain individual we don't name who cried on the stream.
Listen,
you know who I'm talking about.
I have no idea who you're talking about, but that guy's a bitch.
Oh man, yeah, he is.
Imagine crying on a live stream ever. Why are you crying? Like, why? What could possibly happen on a live stream to make you cry? God.
He wasn't given his soy milk. I don't know. Let's see. Where did we?
He didn't chew up enough high points. That's a joke, because you can't chew up a high point that's actually fired. You have to chew them raw. 42. Exactly. We're on 42. You're on 42.
Okay, I'll do 42 or 43 since 42 is small. Despite the complexity of Justina's presentation and the medically appropriate consideration of a psychological component to her presentation, there was no allegation that Justina was abused or that total isolation from her parents and family would be an appropriate treatment or diagnostic protocol.
Now, wait a minute. Who says that you get to determine what paragraphs you do?
Me? I provided it.
That's a good point. That's a good argument. Accepted, counselor. Continue.
Okay. Justina was transferred to Boston Children's by ambulance. According to the emergency department records, Justina arrived at the hospital via ambulance with her mother at 4:07 a.m. The emergency department physician recorded a history of a stroke at age 2 with residual right side weakness, GI dysmotility, and a presumed diagnosed.
Yeah, you should have let me read this one, right?
I'm starting to think Ty wrote this, of mitochondrial disease. According to the record, Ms. Pelletier reported that Justina had been in her usual state of health 1 month ago, including starting a new school, ambulating, ice skating, and skiing, when she began to decline, and that 2 weeks earlier, Justina had become fatigued and lethargic, sleeping 6 hours after the school day had developed dysarthric speech and a difficulty swallowing, being able to take in fluids but not solid food. Actually, it kind of sounds like it might have started out as kind of an anxiety thing. She had just started a new school, and, at that age, you start a new school and you become kind of anxious.
She's also doing a lot of physical activity.
Right. So it sounds like it might have been she was overexerting herself, and there might have been some anxiety involved, and that could have been contributing to what was going on. Again, not saying that Munchausen by proxy should have ever been considered, but it definitely sounds like it was less of like flu-like symptoms and more of overexertion. She wasn't resting and she was anxious.
Miss Pelletier reported that she took Justina to Connecticut. God, I hate Connecticut. It's not even a real state.
It's okay.
Connecticut
we all hate it.
Children's Medical Center, and when Justina was not improving, and contacted Dr. Corson, who recommended that they go to the Boston Children's Hospital. In addition, Miss Pelletier reported that EEG had been performed in Connecticut and was concerning for seizures.
So I guess there was something on the EEG that said, okay, she might be building up to a seizure. I'm not sure how that works, but I believe it. They went through medical school. I didn't. The defendant, neurologist Jurian Peters, which, by the way, white guy. I know that first name would probably tell you sounds like he might be Indian. Nope. white guy, saw Justina at 8 a.m. in the emergency department. He immediately questioned what he referred to as the black and white thinking of mom. Quote, some providers are incompetent, insufficient, and most don't understand her daughter's complicated disease, and others are excellent and unique in their understanding of her daughter's problems, and mom is close and personal with the latter per her own report. To be fair, if she actually said that, I probably would have thought, okay, there might be a little something to wonder about there, maybe some Munchausen by proxy. You see that, in the studies that I did during college, when you have something like that happening, you generally see one of the parents bringing the child kind of shopping around at hospitals. And one of the things they will say is, they will tell a medical provider who doesn't agree with them, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But if they do, oh, you're just unique. You understand my daughter's care, et cetera, like that. So if she actually said that, then I can understand from that point of view, maybe something going on off in the back of the head, but without anything further, you don't go, oh yeah, Munchausen. And the referral of mom to her daughter's mito disorder, even though this is questioned still, if I understand documentation correctly. He wrote, we will definitely involve social work and psychiatry. So right after he talked to her, he's already talking about involving social services, the Department of Children and Families.
Correct. And so people are now asking what price I would have to be pepper sprayed on stream. A lot.
Don't wear contacts.
I don't wear contacts. I had LASIK, so I'm fine with that. Maybe that would be a Patreon goal or something. I should set a ridiculous Patreon goal and see if we can hit it. But I would
watch that.
It would take a lot. And then I'll set a higher one for being tased on stream. And then I'll set an even higher one for being pegged on my OnlyFans. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That'll never happen. Dr. Peters.
What? Have an OnlyFans or be pegged?
Yes.
Good answer.
Dr. Peters contacted Dr. Corson, who advised Dr. Peters that he had been treating Justina and had clinically diagnosed her with mitochondrial disorder, that Justina's sister had the same diagnosis with a respiratory chain defect diagnosed by muscle biopsy, and that he had referred the Pelletier family to Boston Children's Hospital to see Dr. Flores, her longtime gastroenterologist. Dr. Corson did not express concerns about non-medical or non-organic contributors to Justina's presentation. So that's the that's the
Dr. Flores was the one.
Yeah, and that's the euphemism for the abuse that was mentioned earlier.
Right. Dr. Peters also spoke with Justina's pediatrician, Dr. Binder, who admitted that he rarely saw Justina and did not have the expertise necessary to diagnose or treat her conditions, but had some disagreements with the extent of Justina's specialized care. According to Dr. Peters' report of the conversation, Dr. Binder stated that, quote, there has been an explicit concern for factitious disorder by proxy, which is the current name for Munchausen by proxy, although not many providers have stated this firmly, let alone spelled that thought out. This may be in part due to her complicated medical history and potential for underlying medical disease, which some test results have suggested, although again, there is no unifying diagnosis, end quote. Dr. Peters reported that Binder agrees with our suggestion to get risk management involved early in the process. She is at large risk for iatrogenic injury, and her healthcare providers are at risk for medical legal liability.
Medical legal.
Whatever. Medical liability, medical malpractice. Okay. Dr. Binder gave no specific example of any diagnosis that was misdiagnosed or psychiatric in nature, admitted that he was not qualified to make such a determination, did not identify any qualified specialist who shared that opinion with him, and did not identify any provider who opined to him that Justina suffered from or was suspected of suffering from fictitious disorder by proxy. Now, keep in mind, in 2011, that 51A had been filed with the Department Connecticut DCF because it was worried that there might be some Munchausen by proxy. that was the only time it was mentioned. That's the only time that they ever had to deal with something like this. And that was dismissed outright by Connecticut.
But Connecticut Child Services, to be fair, is less capable than Massachusetts Child Services, right?
Well, no. This is actually a really good segue. So around this time,
I was just making a joke.
Yeah, we're gonna drop some information. Around this time, several children in DCF custody and DCF foster homes had gone missing. One of them, Jeremiah something, I can't remember his full name, but he was missing for like 6 months. And one of the caseworkers had said she had seen him every month during that time at the foster home. And it turned out it wasn't true. The child's body was found in a suitcase on the side of the road, like some 6 or 7 months later, in the middle of this entire thing.
Where was he going? I'm just kidding.
Hell,
I'm just kidding.
I
Jesus
guess.
Christ.
Purgatory. But
oh, you are Catholic.
at the time, no, not anymore. But at the time, Governor Deval Patrick, who I think was the governor after Romney, and he managed to be even worse than Romney, was saying how he had complete faith in DCF and the leadership of Olga Roche. Like a week later, the body was found, and Olga Roche was forced to resign. There was absolutely no faith in DCF. And actually, one of the hosts, Jeff Cooner, who was a writer for the Washington Times, I think it was the Washington Times. He has a radio show up here in Boston, which at the time was a 5 to 9 in the morning. And he was talking about this and harping on about this because he was the one who was really covering Justina Pelletier. Howie Carr kind of got into it, but he didn't talk about it too much other than to shit on Deval Patrick and his leadership. But Jeff Cooner was legitimately involved because of the bullshit that was going on with DCF and Boston Children's, and he was talking about it and whatnot. So DCF, nobody had any faith in them, and then this happened, and it compounded things. So yeah, that's long and short saying that no, DCF is incompetent.
This is way off topic. But speaking of incompetent child protective services, did you see that there was a program, I think it was in Germany, West Germany, where they were placing the children that were homeless with known pedophiles because they would make, quote, great parents. And this went on for 30 years?
Germany making all the best decisions, let me tell you.
30 years! They're like, what we should do? We should take these kids who are homeless and we should put them with known pedophiles because they will love them and hug them and squeeze them. Oh my God!
I mean, at least they'd have a roof over their head. Like
a roof over my head and a finger in my butt. That's
who would think that's a good idea? You're putting him with a pedophile. Like, you don't have to be the smartest person around. Even like Middle Eastern countries would be like, this is probably a bad friggin' idea. The Catholic Church would be like, this is a bad friggin' idea.
It's at least bad marketing.
No, this looks like a good idea. This looks like a good idea.
Speaking of pedophiles, a pedophile emailed me the other day.
We're talking about him. Okay.
No, we're not going to talk about him very much. I just wanted to let the chat know that a pedophile whose emails I've read on the stream a couple times because he's legitimately insane, emailed me and admitted his pedophilia and his pedophilic tendencies to me. In fact, even including the underage children that he likes to look at. But he swore he would never harm them. This is a person who moralized to me over Drexel and other people on the stream. Just remember that. That was great. Very, very wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for emailing me. Please send me more. At some point, I'll write a book.
It was the guy, for those who don't know, it was the guy who a couple of months ago was writing these screeds about Christianity and how God hates Drexel because Drexel is a womanizing person. And, all the good stuff.
Don't worry, guys. He would never touch the children that he masturbates to. Architect of Fate says, how much for you and Drex to have a taser duel after the Russian slap fight? Give us a number to reach using freedom chats by end of Twitch Friday. It's for the fans, Nick, for the fans. Lemon Boys, do it or you're a cuck.
I'd pay to see it. I want to see that.
Felipe Mouve says, hola, Nick. Excelente pronunciación. Tu corte de pelo haircut es horrible. Hope you get what I just said. In short, your haircut sucks. Hey, thanks. Thanks, Felipe. You're helping my self-esteem one shameful chat at a time. I really appreciate it.
Please, somebody get Ken Jennings over here. I think we need to have an intervention before he hurts himself.
I will hurt myself only with more liquor. Okay. Back to this thing. We're on section 48 here, paragraph 48. In his February 11th. So the reason we're going through this, guys, is just to lay out, and this is why this is written in this way. This actually, we've made a couple jokes about the writing of this complaint because they're very minor typographical errors, but largely they are laying out a consistent pattern of competent, educated, and well-intentioned diagnosis and treatment of a known genetic disorder by experts. And what they're going to do is contrast by the care that she received at Children's in Boston in just a bit here, and we're getting to that. But the hard part is they have to establish that there was a consistent stream of medical care that was beneficial to Justina, and also that there were no suspicions of actual abuse going on until they went to Boston and things went straight to hell, which is what going to Boston is. In his February 11th, 2013, 7:40 a.m. note, Dr. Peters wrote that as of that point in time, he had spoken to Dr. Binder and Dr. Corson and had concluded that, quote, the bigger picture is very concerning for Munchausen by proxy, in part superimposed on medical issues that are outside my area of expertise. She has no formal diagnosis of a metabolic disorder and has several GI problems. We are involving risk management, patient relations, SW, social work, CPT, child protection team, psychiatry, GI, gastroenterology, and metabolism. Interestingly, GI, gastroenterology, there is no I in gastroenterology. It's an E. I just want to point that out. That bothers me.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, it's supposed to be gastrointestinal, but yeah. I guess they recently changed the name. I don't know.
So, but yeah, so this guy has a note that now importantly, outside of his areas of expertise, she has these issues, which are inside the areas of expertise of the other doctors. And that's why they're pointing out that in this note, this doctor is not actually qualified to make statements about these other diagnoses. And he just ignores them. So sorry, go ahead. You do 49 and 50 because this is my show and I'll tell you what to do.
No, I'm going to put my foot down and do 51 as well. The Children's Hospital Child Protective Team was headed by the defendant, Alice Newton, MD, who was the team case reviewer. At or around 5:24 p.m., Dr. Peters spoke with Dr. Grissomer, a child neurologist from Tufts. Dr. Grissomer reported that there may be some basis for their medical concerns, but, quote, other doctors voiced similar concerns, unquote. He was specifically asked about separating parent from child through DCF. Dr. Grissomer did not agree with that option and thought the parents were entitled to the benefit of the doubt if the case becomes legally challenged.
Dr. Peters requested a psychiatric evaluation of Justina. The defendant, Simona Buongiorno, PhD, responded, evaluated Justina on February 11, 2011, and wrote her first note at 8... Wait, what? This timeline seems way the hell off. Because we're in 2013. At
this point, I think this part was written by the Texas Second District Court of Appeals.
Yeah, I think
apparently they have a fucking time traveling machine at this point.
February 11th is consistent with the date in 2013. I think they just typoed 2011 to 2013.
Again, it's like when the Second Court of Appeals said that thing last March was filed May 2019.
Okay, so evaluated Justina on February 11th, 2013, we'll say, and wrote her first note at 8:59 p.m. The, quote, primary reason for evaluation, end quote, was reported to be, quote, somatic concerns, end quote. Dr. Bajorno noted that Justina had been treating with a psychiatrist, presumably she meant Dr. Hokanson, a psychologist, for years. Dr. Bajorno did not contact Dr. Hokanson except to have him fill out a questionnaire sent to him more than 2 weeks later on February 27th, 2013. So again, she wrote her notes without checking the adequate medical history or referencing or contacting the medical professionals involved in her case. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like this doctor might just be more of a, an administrative doctor at this point, like in some kind of administrative position. So she goes by what other doctors are telling her. I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong, but that's kind of the impression I got from that. Dr. Peters requested a psychiatric evaluation of Justina. The defendant, that's totally what you just wrote or read.
What? No.
Isn't it?
I'm 50. You're on 52.
Yeah.
Oh, were you reading 51?
Yeah, I was reading 51. I 100%
well, sorry,
started. Yeah.
You have to clean up the bowl now. Go ahead, though. 52.
Dr. Bajorno reported that Justina had no history of psychiatric diagnosis and no family history of psychiatric illness. The doc described Justina as happy, well-functioning at a special integrated school and displayed no risky behaviors. The doctor wrote, Justina Pelletier is a 14-year-old girl with a complicated medical history of likely perinatal stroke, long history of constipation. I believe SP means surgically placed cystectomy. April 2012, headaches, abdominal pain, and a possible diagnosis of mitochondrial disorder and recent diagnosis of epilepsy on Tegretol, who presents for further evaluation of progressive weakness, altered mental status, eyes rolling back in word retrieval difficulties, intermittent dysarthria, incontinence, and inability to walk. She has previously had extensive workup at Tufts and Connecticut Children's, including consults with metabolism, cardiology, GI, psychiatry, and neurology, which has not yielded a definitive unifying diagnosis. She is admitted to the neurology service for further evaluation, given the concern for her progressive weakness and her altered mental status. The mitochondrial disorder actually was a unifying diagnosis. There had been talks, again, at the beginning about possible Munchausen by proxy, but that was ignored. The only doctor, I believe, who voiced any concern presently, relatively speaking, about possible Munchausen was her pediatrician, who admitted he had absolutely no knowledge in the field, so he really couldn't say one way or the other.
You got BTFO'd in the chat. SP is status post, which means it's been done, not surgically placed. Ha! I'm just kidding. Okay. Thank you, Ryo Hoshi, who writes, he apparently writes up these notes, medical notes, for a living. Presumably at the hire of doctors. I don't know how that works. I'm just taking the words of the chat. Dr. Bajorno appears to have completely rejected the working diagnosis of the Tufts Medical Center team, specifically mitochondrial disorder resulting in other manifestations, including gut dysmotility and inappropriate adrenergic response. I made fun of you.
That's the one unifying word for both of us, where we're just like, fuck English.
I made fun of you earlier, but then the liquor hit me. I'm going to read the next one too, because that one was really short. But Dr. Bajorno, it's important to remember, is on the psychology team. This is not a physician examining her and ruling out mitochondrial disorder. It's the psychologist ruling out mitochondrial disorder, despite several doctors being involved in that diagnosis. Dr. Bajorno noted that the mother saw herself as, quote, child's advocate, and that Justina saw herself in a, quote, sick role, as she concluded based on this very brief interaction. Quote, somatization index, parent report, total score of 75. Functional disability inventory, total score of 46. Hospital functional disability inventory, -9, I'm guessing, because there's a hyphen in there, but I'm not sure. Severe impairment noted with toileting and with eating meals by mouth, drinking by mouth, and walking. DSM-4, multi-axial diagnosis, axis 1, 300.82, somatoform disorder. NOS, axis 2, 799.9, deferred on axis 2, axis 3, headaches, mitochondrial disorder, GI dysmotility, perinatal stroke, stable.
Yeah, if I had my DSM with me, I'd be able to possibly look that stuff up for you. But my friend's got it as he crams for his like final test in medical school. He's like, "Hey, can I borrow it?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." I expect it back too. Putting him on notice. But yeah, it's really weird how they're like the mother saw herself as child's advocate. Nick, are you an advocate for your children?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the problem here?
I don't know, but if a doctor tells me something that is opposite of what every other doctor I've talked to for the past 2 years has told me, I'll just uppercut them in the testicles and move on.
I mean, that's not the wrong answer. Seeing herself in a sick role, she's sick. She's legitimately sick.
Pretty sick, yeah. Like she can't poop or walk.
Yeah, it's almost like she might actually be sick. I wonder, might there be something here?
Yeah. Go ahead and hit 55.
Jared Berry, MD, responded to a request for a metabolism consult to comment on past history of suspected mitochondrial disease, mitochondrial dysfunction on February 12, 2013 at 11 a.m. Dr. Berry noted that Justina had been followed by many providers at Tufts for these concerns, including Dr. Mark Corson in the metabolism program for the past several years. He further noted that Justina's sister had suspected mitochondrial disease. Yes, it's still suspected, even though she's had the official diagnosis for several years at this point.
Right.
Writing that a muscle biopsy in the past has shown a decreased activity of complex 4 of the respiratory chain, with perhaps compensatory increase in mitochondrial DNA copy number. A defined DNA abnormality is the cause of the mitochondrial disease, has not been identified yet. Dr. Berry did not contact Dr. Corson or any of Justina's regular doctors at Tufts. After his history and physical examination, he concluded that he was not clear about the etiology of Justina's overall illness, and he was not sure what further testing should be performed. So he doesn't know anything, and he says as much.
Dr. Peters noted in his February 12, 2013, 7:43 a.m. note. It's important to remember this is all happening pretty quickly still. It's a lot of paragraphs, but this is all within just a couple days. Note that he had, quote, reviewed and edited and contributed to formulation of the plan, which he described as, quote, coordination of care with GI, SW, CPT, that's Child Protective Services. Metabolic disease.
That's the hospital's child protective team.
Child protective team. That's right.
Yeah, it's kind of like a combination of psychiatrists and security, from what I understand. So if you have like a very abusive family, they'll post security outside the room, and nobody's allowed to go into the room without the doctor's permission. And like they are physically allowed to restrain you. I'm talking, they will play ping pong with your head and a wall. That's the kind of stuff that they can do.
Metabolic disease team, legal department, outside providers, and mom. Avoidance of diagnostic procedures and renewed discussions on past or current medical issues, set limits and focus on rehabilitation aspects of care. So there you go.
So at this point, they're taking their working theory that it's all a somatoform disorder. It's not actually mitochondrial. It's a somatoform disorder being exacerbated by Munchausen by proxy. And they're ignoring what the doctors who have seen her for years have said it is. It presents all the, if you want to call it classic symptoms, they're ignoring what those doctors are saying. And they're saying, I'm ignoring your reality and substituting my own. And this is where you start to see exactly why, especially at Harvard, this has been a huge issue with Harvard. Egos are such a big thing. They've got a huge, they're world renowned as one of the best hospitals in the world, but the doctors there have allowed their egos to grow. I'm very lucky my doctor down here, my surgeon down here said he doesn't think he can perform the surgery I need. And he's sending me up to another doctor in Boston. You don't hear that anymore from doctors. Normally speaking, they tell you, oh yeah, I can do it, because their ego is involved. Harvard is that taken to 11. And that's exactly what you're seeing here now.
I'm that taken to 12. Let's trade off paragraphs in 57 because there are 4 of them and they get a little bit long. So you start out.
All right. Dr. Peters wrote a second note at 6:45 p.m. that same day, February 12, 2013, summarizing the 2-hour multidisciplinary meeting held that afternoon at 2:00 p.m. and the following discussion with Mrs. Pelletier held at 3:45 p.m.
CPT times 3, psychiatry times 2, SWRN staff, PT, NP, neurology resident and attending legal division for second part with mother only neurology team and psychiatry team, 4 persons attending times 2, intern / resident times 2 plus mom.
So the legal division was brought in because, oh God, medical malpractice. We need to find out how do we insulate ourselves. The classic cover your ass thing. Summary: strong and well-documented concerns for pediatric condition falsification or medical child abuse. Concerns expressed also for induced symptoms, but currently little data to suggest the latter. So they're assuming Munchausen by proxy, if I'm reading that correctly. I could be wrong. But there's no real data to support that claim. Really makes you think what the hell's going on, right?
Right.
Meeting early into hospital stay is indicated and appropriate. Importance of aligning members of healthcare team and consult providers, except the ones that are at Tufts. Importance of aligning members of health. Importance of engaging mother and forming therapeutic alliance with her. Setting limits. Discussion of therapeutic plan and its elements. See below. Importance of protection of more junior staff, residents, interns, nursing students. Instructing them not to engage in lengthy medical discussions and deferring to daytime team attending to senior resident. So at this point, they're saying, don't tell the parents anything. They haven't even at this point filed a 51A complaint with DCF, but they're already talking about taking the child away from her parents. Despite the one doctor they specifically asked outside of Harvard, they said, hey, would this be a good idea? And his response was not just no, but fuck no. And they're just like, disregard. Mm-hmm. Like that's the bullshit you're starting to see right here. And this is coming specifically from their notes. This isn't them making supposition based on what they think happened. This is taking Dr. Peters' notes and putting it, maybe not word for word, but paraphrasing it in here. So they're already talking about Munchausen by proxy, even though they even admit there's no data to support it.
Right.
Involvement of father in process and continue to update throughout admission. Plan was formulated to set limits and expectations, therapeutic and not diagnostic plan.
Summary part 2. Mother invited in. Explain lack of data to support any underlying neurological diagnosis. We use the terms psychogenic as well as somatoform disorder and spent quite some time about these symptoms. With the help of the psychiatry team, we discussed common psychological mechanisms as well as the typical approach to these problems. Mom expressed concerns that we would not acknowledge her physical issues, including possible mitochondrial disease, defer to metabolic team, dysmotility, defer to GI team, and stroke, our team, but not an active issue. We explained that I would not focus on taking any diagnosis away, and that a multidisciplinary team approach is warranted, but that the channels of communication regarding medical issues will go through us. We explained we would like to embark on a proactive, therapeutic path akin to a rehabilitation program. More so, we will not engage in complicated and lengthy discussions on many potential diagnoses and test results, and we will set strict limits to the amount of diagnostic tests we will perform. Now, to be fair to the team, limiting the amount of diagnostic tests is a nice way to deal with a child who might not want to have a million needles and monitors shoved into her at any point in the day. So they are trying to take into consideration that the child doesn't want to be a literal lab rat for them. But
Right, they don't want to be a pincushion.
The problem is Justina was already a pincushion, and they had these diagnoses already. We emphasize that a novel approach may allow us to be different and perhaps more successful than previous medically oriented approaches. We explained to her that there would be parts of the plan that she would not like or endorse, or even frankly disagree with, but as long as we had a relation of trust, we would work through these issues. For example, rather than focusing on why Tegretol was prescribed, by who, and if it should have been tapered by now, we will simply discontinue it stepwise. The same applies for metoprolol and midodrine. The mom needs to return to her role as mother and not medical caretaker or health provider or advocate. We did not discuss that for some parts of the plan, it would be beneficial to Justina if mom is not present for part of the day or treatment. Mom was agreeable to setting up a therapeutic plan on the condition GI and metabolic team stay on board. She expressed her confidence in the team. So this is pretty interesting. They're talking about ending medications that are being used to treat her disorder at the time. And they're saying, like, look, mom, you need to stop worrying about these things. Don't tell us who prescribed them. They're actually saying, we don't really care about the qualifications of the person who prescribed them or the circumstances under which they're prescribed. Right now, we're just going to end them. And you need to be a mom.
Just cold turkey and just accept what we're going to do, because now we're in charge. And you're going to see that in a bit where they actually say, no, you can't talk to any doctor outside of the doctors we allow you to talk to. You can't talk to them about what's going on.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. Okay, why don't you pick up at 58?
Despite the team's reported strong and well-documented concerns for pediatric condition falsification or medical child abuse, and despite the fact that Drs. Peters, Bougeau-Renaud, and Newton were mandated reporters, no GL Chapter 119, Section 51A report was made to DCF. So at that point, they're claiming they're claiming Munchausen by proxy, even though nothing really exists to support that from their own notes. And they haven't filed a 51A report to DCF.
Right. So they're not actually following the legal process for filing a 51A, which would be what they would do if they suspected child abuse. Under the auspices of 51A, each of Children's Hospital's providers were mandated reporters, and failure to report the suspected abuse, if it was indeed suspected, would have been a grave violation of law and the professional standards of conduct as medical doctors. Mandated reporters are afforded no discretion to investigate, remedy, or ameliorate the suspected abuse. By the way, this is actually an interesting thing. As an attorney, I can't really fulfill the role of a mandated reporter because that might require me to compromise something told to me under attorney-client privilege, and I can't do that. When I was a mandated reporter as a foster parent, you're right. You don't get to investigate, remedy, or ameliorate abuse. If you see it, you are required to contact the authorities and tell them about any suspected abuse. And it is, you don't get to fix it. You have to tell them. They must immediately make an oral report to the Department of Children and Families when they have reasonable cause to believe that a child is suffering from abuse or neglect. Failure to do so can result in fines, criminal prosecution, and discipline from the Board of Registration of Medicine.
Meaning they can lose their license.
Right, they could or be censured for a period of time, have to go through rehabilitation for their license, all sorts of possible remedies.
Right, and that's if they had actually thought this, the day that she was brought in and Peters did his first evaluation, he should have filed a 51A. And that would have bolstered their case, in my opinion. They thought the day of, there might be something here. So they filed the initial, they have to do it verbally, right? That's how they have to do it. They have to call up DCF and say, hey, I'm Dr. Jurian Peters. I'm with Boston Children. I've got a patient here. I've got a tender age patient here exhibiting signs of Munchausen by proxy. I'm just filing a preliminary report. Tests are ongoing. I'm just, basically covering my ass. And then DCF responds to that. They didn't do that for several days, though, which means that, there could have been a lawsuit for putting the child into harm's way. Their response, obviously, at this point would be, we already limited contact with the parents. Munchausen by proxy was no longer, the abuse was no longer a worry because of our actions to limit the contact with the parents.
Right. All right, pick up at 60.
After these meetings, Dr. Peters spoke to Christian Ionita, MD, a pediatric neurologist at Connecticut Children's Medical Center, reported that he saw Justina last week and deemed the presentation psychogenic, but has provided no prior care to her. And he was informed by multiple members of the team at CCMC that her illness was psychogenic. And he tells me mom was told this before, and she reportedly had indicated she understood and even accepted it, and that mom refused to work with a certain inpatient psychiatrist he often works with and requested a specific psychiatrist. Yes, imagine that. You have a psychiatrist, well, actually a psychologist, who she has been working with for years. It's logical that the child and the mother would want to see that psychologist. They've been working with him. And if memory serves, something being psychogenic could mean literally anxiety, fatigue caused by that. She was already showing that, going to a new school and whatnot, that could put strain on somebody who physically is not already all there. So saying that it's presenting psychogenic, it doesn't necessarily mean Munchausen by proxy. It could just mean that there's anxiety, there's timidity, something like that just needs to be worked out with by a psychiatrist. That's all it could be.
Presenting psychogenic sounds like a song by an emo band about cutting. Dr. Bajorno's February 12th, 2013 note reports the, quote, extensive team meeting with psychiatry, neurology, PT, social work, CPT, and legal present. Discussed case history and treatment plan. Neurology and psychiatry team then met with Miss Pelletier separately to discuss multidisciplinary recommendations. Specifically, Dr. Peters discussed with mother, as well as father via telephone, that the multidisciplinary team would be focusing on recovery and rehabilitation for Justina rather than focusing on diagnosis, with the goal to get Justina back to her baseline functioning, e.g. walking, eating, able to attend school, motor control. Spoiler alert! They failed at all of this.
It's so weird how for years her doctors had been trying to fucking do this, and then Harvard comes in and says, no, we're gonna really do this. It's like,
yeah,
are you fucking serious? Like, are you saying that doctors from Tufts, a premier teaching school, don't actually have the patient's fucking, best interests at heart? Are you saying that teaching school?
To be fair, Tufts is named shit. Like, that is a shit name for a place. I would never take my kids to a place named Tufts.
There's the Mayo Clinic. It's named after mayonnaise. I think that's even worse.
I like mayonnaise. I'm white. I can't help it. It's genetic.
I hate mayonnaise. It's so disgusting.
What are you? Are you Rachel Dolezal? What is this? Sean King over here pretending to hate mayonnaise?
Look, don't you ever equate me to Talcum X again. Don't you ever fucking equate.
I'm just saying, look, you're whiter than uncut Nicaraguan cocaine. You can't tell me you don't eat mayonnaise.
Casper the Friendly Ghost is fucking darker than me, okay? But I hate mayonnaise. God.
Mayonnaise is delicious. God. Too much mayonnaise is not.
You're making. Let's get off this topic because it is legitimately making me sick.
I'm gonna have a mayonnaise stream. I'm gonna just eat a jar of mayonnaise and say Spectre and rub my nipples.
Guess what fucking stream I'm unsubbing you from you on?
Okay, back to it. This includes the team.
I will pull a fucking JMK and I will do a charge back on my Patreon, damn it.
Did he do that?
I thought that's what he was doing, remember? We were
no,
talking
he just would delete it before Patreon would charge it.
Right. Okay, okay, cool. Another thing I'm not following JMK's footsteps in. Cool. Okay, I feel better about myself already.
Yeah, this includes the team. I always just get cannot process payment from. No, I'm just kidding. That's actually a lie. I'm just making a joke. This includes the team creating a behavior plan for Justina to facilitate her recovery, e.g., PT sessions, eating plans. Oh, God, I need an eating plan. Psychoeducation.
My plan for eating is just to find food and shove it down my gullet. This is
That's what I mean. My plan is to eat. Med reduction. Neurology and psych team emphasized to parents the need for her to be supportive to Justina's recovery efforts. You're right. Prior to this, the mom is not supportive to Justina's recovery efforts. Nope. That bitch.
Nope. And parents are, yeah.
And that we would be modifying plan as we go along to address her changing needs / progress. PCS team also provided psychoeducation to parents regarding mind / body connection, as well as our case formulation about current psychiatric conceptualization and diagnosis of somatoform disorder. The parents indicated
sound like a fucking cult.
The parents indicated that they were happy with a multidisciplinary approach, including therapeutic and psychiatric overlays, as long as, quote, Justina's medical issues are also addressed. Notice they're saying specifically that they're not going to address the medical issues, and they're simply going to focus on this as a psychiatric or somatoform disorder. Like, that's what's being said here, and that's really important to note. They're saying that, and they're saying she wants this, but she's happy with the multidisciplinary approach. But then they didn't actually do the multidisciplinary approach that they promised, and they had no intention of doing so in the notes. As we see, Dr. Bajorno then prepared a written treatment plan that was distributed to and approved by all members of the multidisciplinary team, including Dr. Peters.
Yep.
His name is Dr. Euphemism for penis. I don't like it.
Yeah, as I said, his first name is Jurian. Jurian. You would think, hearing that, okay, Indian. Nope, white guy.
Okay, real question, Spectre. Do you trust Indian doctors or white doctors more? Like, knowing nothing about the doctor, Indian guy walks in the room or white guy walks in the room, who do you trust? I trust the Indian guy.
Yeah, my surgeon was Dr. Siddhiswarappa, and he was, I think he was Bangladeshi. I think he's Bangladeshi. Really good guy, but I trust him because he's the one who told me, I don't think I can perform this surgery. I'm going to refer you to the guy who taught me. And that's who's going to be performing my surgery. So it's kind of like, you don't hear that from doctors. The only one I've heard it from is him. So immediately I'm like, as long as I don't ask you for tech support questions, I should be okay.
Yeah. Listen, I will open you up and you will like it. Everything will be fine. But let me tell you about that blue screen on your computer. It will take $250 to FBI to remedy. Please send it via wire transfer to Bangladesh and Mumbai.
Look, I am going to open you up, and then we are going to turn you off and back on again, and you will be fine.
We will reset your router, sir. Everything will be okay.
You can bet me in Best Buy gift cards.
I 100%, and this is not even a joke. If I can barely understand the doctor through his accent, I automatically trust him more, because if I hear the guy speaking in English and I don't understand what he's saying, I'm feeling insulted. But if I hear the guy speaking in English and I don't understand what he's saying because of his accent, then I'm not insulted. I'm like, oh, I just don't understand.
It's almost reassuring.
I just don't understand the medical terminology because of this guy's weird accent. That's the problem. It's not me.
If your name ends in Berg, Witz, or your name I cannot fucking pronounce because it comes from East Asia, we're good. I trust you. I have complete faith in your ability to doctor properly. But the minute I see somebody who comes in and his last name is Peters, I'm like, no, I want somebody who definitely came in here on a fucking visa. You give him to me right now.
The problem is the last 3 doctors I went to with heart issues, they said, look, open Bob. And then they followed with, please show vagine. And I didn't know what was going on.
Did you think of actually seeing a real doctor and not going to fucking Fiverr?
No.
Well, there's your mistake.
Why would you not go to Fiverr for... Read 62, Jesus Christ.
The treatment plan of the team, including Doctors Newton, Peters, and the doctor whose name I refuse to pronounce at this point.
Bajorno! It's as French as it gets.
I think that's isn't buongiorno like
Look,
Italian?
it's not
Whatever.
delivery, it's buongiorno.
Look, it's not medical malpractice, it's buongiorno. Included the immediate termination of Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier's right to meaningfully participate in making important medical decisions for Justina. Here's where they just cut off her.
Look, our treatment plan involves you guys not making any decisions at all. Are you okay with that?
Our treatment plan involves all this stuff. Sounds good. Oh, there's one other thing. What's that? You have no say in it, so haha, faked out. Well played, doctors. Well played. The immediate termination, blah, blah, blah. The immediate termination of all diagnostic testing and evaluation of physical causes of her symptoms, and would require that all of their interactions with their child's doctors be supervised by hospital staff. Additionally, the treatment plan was to discontinue multiple medications without consultation with the prescribing doctors. So at this point, they are talking about discontinuing her medical treatment to put her on the medical plan that they have set up for her, even though every doctor outside of Boston Children's they've talked to has said, no, this has been working up to this point. Harvard comes in, and after 1, 2, maybe 3 days of talking to her, they say, no, we know what's going on, even though you've been treating her for years.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. And to add in some anecdotal, I guess, opinion, as a dad, if this medical team came to me with this question and said, yeah, you don't, our proposed medical plan says we make all of the decisions and you don't get to be involved in that process, we're going to tell you what decisions we're making, but we're not going to actually let you have input on them. I say, fuck you, and we leave immediately. There is
they tried to.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. But there's no way that is a medical plan I accept, period. I don't care if it's the best medical plan in the world. My child, you're going to at least get my consent on every medical procedure going forward. And I have to say, I have to give credit where credit's due. Brian Hallman had the that's not delivery, that's buongiorno. Buongiorno. I didn't see that joke in the chat, but I trust Brian's assertion that he said it before me, and therefore I will give him credit for the joke, even though I did not rely on it in making my joke. So there you go. Okay.
As we've seen over the past couple of months, a lot of people don't rely on anything to do anything. I mean, look at Moron's legal defense team not relying on anything.
Yeah,
stupidity.
By the way, are you guys pumped to see Vic's responses to the appeals going on? If you're I have a strong, some people have been saying on Kiwi Farms and other places, for example, that they believe there will be another extension. I do not believe there will be another extension. I believe that this will be the turn-in point. We'll be covering them as they come out. Yeah, I would expect some multiple documents, because there's at least two issues here, right? There's their response to the counter, the cross appeal, I should say, and then you've got
SIR reply. Yeah,
right. Then there's SIR reply to the other appeals, and I don't know whether or not they're doing one SIR reply to cover all of the appeals, or if they're doing multiple SIR replies for each of the responses that came in. But I would suspect that there's a lot of material to come through, and I think we'll be seeing it in the next couple days here. So just so you guys know that Vic is not off the radar, and this is a good time real quick to mention, I suppose, the Vic petition. Where the hell is that?
I thought we were going to talk about the GoFundMe again.
No. I'm not really doing the GoFundMe right now, because the GoFundMe was done a lot leading up to all of this stuff, and I don't want to ask people for a bunch of money on the promise that at some point maybe the appeal will go through. I'm not. If you want to donate to the GoFundMe, please do, but I'm not really pushing it very hard. But what I am going to do is this real quick. And Spectre, you're going to be off the screen for a minute, but your voice will still be here with us. Oh, damn. I got my thumbnail up still from that other thing. Okay, get rid of the cops. All right, here is the petition. We are at 9,230 something signatures. Guys, push it to 10,000. Like, imagine how crazy it is to have, oh, we're at 9,000, we're at over 9,240 something. Push it to 10,000. That would be amazing. Having it go over 10,000 will be a massive statement to conventions. Nobody, self included, nobody expected 10,000 people to come out and say, please bring Vic to Anime Matsuri. So if you want that, I believe my moderators will probably be, Angry Baneling specifically is sharing that petition. So go ahead and check it out and sign it if you want to have Vic go to Anime Matsuri. I got to change my wording. I keep saying if you want to see Vic at Anime Matsuri. This is not a thing saying you will be physically present at Matsuri and you will see Vic. It's that you want to see Vic go to Anime Matsuri, whether you'll be there or not. There are other options for Anime Matsuri. There are digital tickets. There are other things you can do to support the show. You could simply say, I want to see him go there so that other people get to interact with him, even though I can't. So please, please sign that petition. Make sure and hit it. Let's push it over 10,000. Monica can't even get 10,000 people to say she needs to lose weight, which is a basic truth of humanity. We need to get Vic over 10,000 for showing up at Anime Matsuri. This is so important. We discovered on Live Chat Wednesday today that there are more people who want to see Vic go to Anime Matsuri than want to have a Ladyboy Hooters. There is an active petition on change.org for a Ladyboy Hooters. More people want Vic to go to Anime Matsuri currently than they want a Ladyboy Hooters, and we cannot let that heresy stand. We must bury the Ladyboy Hooters petition. It must be far beyond it. Guys, if you have not signed the petition, please do so. And that's all the shilling I'm going to do on the Vic petition for now. Femboy Hooters, not Ladyboy. Sorry to use the wrong nomenclature there. It is Femboy Hooters.
How dare you?
I apologize to all the Thai ladyboys that I offended by by saying that.
The Navy is very upset with you right now.
Listen. Okay. Are we on 60? We're on 62. Am I? I'm reading 62. I made this.
I just read.
Yeah, you just read. Okay. Here we go. The treatment plan of the team, including doctors Newton, Peters, and Bajorno.
I just read that.
You read that one?
Yeah, that was the one where we started talking about the, they terminated the,
oh, right. Yeah. Okay. The defendants, Dr. Bajorno, Dr. Peters, and Dr. Newton was not qualified. Damn it! Were not qualified. It says was not qualified to exclude mitochondrial disease as a possible organic cause of Justina's symptoms. Moreover, no reliable physical diagnosis could be made until Justina's dehydration and nutritional needs were treated. Go ahead on 64.
That's a fair point. Dr. Peters' note, dated February 13, 2013, 10:52 a.m., indicates that he also spoke with Justina's cardiologist, Dr. Nix. This note is dated after the treatment plan was put in place, which involved a plan to stop medications, including the metoprolol and mitadrine. During that conversation with Dr. Nix, advised Dr. Peters that the metoprolol, I'm just going to call it Prolol, that she had prescribed was effective in that the mitadrine could be stopped. So one has been effective. Don't discontinue that. The other one, you could stop that. What does Dr. Peters decide? No, screw it. 50%, 100%, doesn't matter. Cut it all.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nix. That was my Simpsons joke. Dr. Nix.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Okay, we're gonna alternate on 65 again because it's long things. Disregarding Dr. Nix's advice, the treatment plan was not changed. Indeed, Dr. Peters' notes report further meetings with Ms. Pelletier and Mr. Pelletier by phone on February 13th, 2016, and the team, boom.
On rounds, mom expressed concerns that we wanted to stop medications and noted she did not agree with our approach and plan. Gee, I wonder why. I reiterated parts of the plan and the discussion we had the day before and made it clear that I wanted to prevent another discussion on medical details at the bedside at this point. And by the way, we already told you, you have absolutely no call in what we're going to do. Eventually, I resorted to examination of the patient and mother left the room. I was asked to speak the father, but declined as we were on morning rounds and had multiple other patients to see. Mom expressed her frustration, but the psychiatry team came and was able to diffuse the situation.
This is at 1,300 hours. The psychiatry and neurology teams met with mother and patient relations, and dad was called in over the phone. Again, the discussion was largely focused on medical detail of her care, and we reiterated that we'd like to focus on rehabilitation aspects. We emphasized several times we are not taking any diagnosis away, in particular GI dysmotility, stroke, and possible mitochondrial disorder. Notice this is an interesting thing. They have always referred to it in their notes as possible mitochondrial disorder, despite a diagnosis from a specialist of mitochondrial disorder. The specialist did not diagnose Justina with possible mitochondrial disorder. They've just disregarded it this entire time. And we would continue.
But they've also been saying that there's no unified diagnosis on that. There's no consensus on that. Right. And it definitely seems like what they're doing is they're taking their own doctors, Harvard doctors, and saying, well, because we disagree with the Tufts Medical Center doctors, then there's no consensus, and therefore we're right because we have, it's essentially a possession is 9/10 of the law kind of thing. They've taken over Justina. They have her in their custody, and they're saying, we call the shots now. That's exactly what's going on here.
Right. And we would continue to manage with a multidisciplinary quote, bad comma there, team-based approach. Oh, wait, no. Team-based should be hyphenated. That's the problem. Team-based approach that would continue to include...
That's the only problem with this entire thing. There are absolutely
That's
no
the English problem.
Issues.
It's the English problem.
There's no other grammatical inconsistencies in this document at all. It's just that.
Yeah, but this is a quote from the note. So I'm blaming the doctors here. If it's multidisciplinary, comma, team-based should be hyphenated. A team-based approach that would continue to include GI and metabolic specialists. Lengthy discussion on possibility of taking certain medications away, and particularly metoprolol, and explained we had been in touch with Tufts cardiologists. Now, importantly, I don't think they care about the Tufts cardiologists. They care about the ones who diagnosed their daughter with mitochondrial disorder. Parents express
the Tufts cardiologist is the one that they've been seeing to help with her arrhythmia and tachycardia.
Yeah.
So they care about what Tufts said. Harvard doesn't care.
Parents express their frustration and even disbelief with the notion of psychogenic somatoform aspects of her current presentation. We place emphasis that one, not all was necessarily non-organic. Look, it might be something else. And two, we were not confirming nor actively denying prior diagnoses, just limiting reinvestigations. And three, the discussion and our approaches regarding the current, not past presentation. This includes our impression that her current neurological presentation appears largely non-organic and bears no relation to remote neurological issues such as her perinatal or childhood, for that matter, stroke. The discussion became repetitive and little progress was made in context of significant agitation. We did not have the opportunity to present our plan, approach on or proposed day routine. The meeting was adjourned. Listen to this. They keep focusing on the neurological issues and they keep ignoring the underlying mitochondrial disorder that is out there. They're talking about, look, it might be organic, but we're focusing on the non-organic things. Look, it's not the stroke that she had as a kid. I don't think the parents are actually concerned about the stroke that she had as a kid as much as they are about the current mitochondrial disorder. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, but it seems like even the Tufts medical professionals weren't overly concerned about the perinatal stroke as they were about the ongoing complications from mitochondrial disorder. Okay, go ahead at 1400.
It came into play only because I don't know how many of you have been to a doctor, but one of the things they always go over when you see a new doctor and you start a new medical record is they go over your medical history. Have you ever had any strokes? Have you ever had cancer? What surgeries have you had? Does your family history include diabetes? Stuff like that. They always go over because it does factor into, what could happen to you in the future. If you have a family history of diabetes and you go to the hospital 10 years later and it could be diabetes, well, they want to make sure that they rule it out or rule that it's that's what it is. They have to take into account the history. So for them to say, we're not going to focus on what happened in the past, we're only going to focus on what's happening now. Well, how do you know what's happening now isn't related to what's happened in the past? It seems kind of counterproductive.
I've never been to a new doctor ever. Go ahead and hit. Go ahead.
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, I don't believe in doctors. Go ahead.
Met with CPT, X3, legal division, RN staff, neurology and psychiatry team. Discussion followed about ways to increase chances of successful alliance with the parents and what next step in the admission would be most beneficial to Justina's long-term well-being and health. So at this point, they're even saying we are cutting the parents off. The parents are going to have no contact with their daughter. They're not going to have any say in what we are doing. They are going to have absolutely nothing to do with their daughter at this point, even though we've pretty much told them everything, but you have no call anymore.
Right. Okay. The details of the treatment plan as set out in Dr. Peters' February 13, 2013, 6:34 p.m. note are 1. I'll read 1 and 2. You read 3. Follow the behavioral plan that will be formulated with input from all relevant disciplines, which will day schedule feeding and functioning plans with therapeutic approach. 2, participate in daily intensive physical therapy as indicated. Focus of daily physical therapy will be to improve overall functional ability for self-independent mobility. Go ahead.
Both parents are to be supportive of their daughter and not being involved in the medical management. Parents may not administer any medications or flushes to patient. No discussion of diagnostic test results, consulting team recommendations, or past medical issues with on-call residents. So, okay, the parents can't administer any medication. You're in a hospital. The hospital should be able to do that for you. And they're going to be punctual with that. That's just how it is. Limit communication exclusively through neurology team. So their middleman is going to be the neurology team. No medical discussions to be held in the room or within the patient's hearing. That's actually not that uncommon.
Right.
And then no dictation of care or calling in consult teams or second opinions on their own accord. So the parents literally at this point are being told, you can't call in the Tufts doctors. You can't get a second opinion from them. You can't take your daughter out of this hospital to see other doctors. That's about to come up because that is a big thing and leads to the 51A being filed officially.
Right, and this is a crazy idea. You are not allowed as a part of the treatment to seek a second opinion. Like, imagine you go to any doctor and they're like, look, I need to put my fingers in your butt. And you're like, well, I don't really want to do that. And they're like, you don't get to seek a second opinion. It's not allowed. And if you try to seek a second opinion, we're going to restrain you. I mean, that's basically what happens to Justina through her parents. Her parents are not allowed a second opinion. If a doctor came in, now obviously this didn't happen, but hypothetically, a doctor comes in and says, I need to have sex with your underage daughter to treat her. They're not allowed to seek a secondary medical opinion on this. I'm being hyperbolic, but think of what they're doing. These are medically invasive procedures. They're medically damaging procedures to a child who has no agency, and her parents, who have all of the agency for the minor child, are no longer allowed to seek an outside opinion on this. Very, very crazy. Number 4, no diagnostic tests and no new consultations are to be requested unless Justina develops a new or acute process as observed and assessed by the medical team. And number 5, medication regimen will be simplified with a gradual reduction of medications to a small set of essential, non-detrimental, modestly dosed medications with limited side effects, e.g. Lyrica and vitamin cocktail may be okay for now, but not Tegretol, Midodrine, or Metoprolol.
So all the medication she was currently on no longer going to be administered. They're going to do their own, essentially a holistic trial. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Spectre, by the way, some people are asking me for a link to a Discord server called MockSpot.
Yeah, it's Senpai's home server, or it's at least a server that Senpai's home is a mod of, I guess.
Okay.
They're trying to say, oh, it's yours. It's not mine.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a troll thing or if it was an actual thing.
It's a troll thing, and they want me to pay attention to them, and I'm just not going to.
Okay, well then I'll ignore them too. You want to pick up on 67?
They put my face as a mascot, trying as the icon for the server, thinking that this ugly mug, I am somehow going to lose my fucking mind over it. I don't think you understand this.
Have you ever seen your own face?
No, every fucking mirror in my house is broken, okay? Look, I fell out of the ugly tree face first, hit every branch on the way below, but I was lucky because the gravel road below broke my fucking fall. They're trying to get under my skin, and I've literally sent to DA Talks and a couple of other people because they found like the one picture of me that is not absolutely garbage. So I sent them a picture of me and said, if you really want to try to make a good point, use this picture of me from when I was in the fucking hospital. It's so weird. So I just you guys want to buddy up with Sen, that's fine. I found it kind of endearing. I kind of found it kind of flattering in a way, because imagine spending that much time trying to get under somebody's skin.
My skin is unget-underable.
Except when it comes to a fucking heat rash, apparently.
Yeah.
Although I guess that's on the skin.
Too fucking shay. Thank you. I went for a walk today like a 90-year-old man. Like, I'm going to go for my diabetes walk now after I eat my oatmeal. That was me.
My brittle old man hip.
That was me. I went for a walk, and it was like 90 degrees out. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I broke out in a fucking heat rash. Oh, it's just embarrassing.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was trying to ignore it because I didn't want to give them the attention, but you know what?
Well, I just didn't know if it was... I didn't know if it was legitimate or not. I don't want to. I don't.
Generally speaking, I know you're new to the internet, but generally speaking, when you see people spamming that, it's a troll. So,
well, to be fair to me, I didn't see people spamming it. I just saw two different people ask one time. So I'm only half paying attention to the chat.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm doing. I mean, I've got the chat over on this screen, and then I've got I just hit my mic, and I got like everything else over here. So it's like,
what did your mic do to you? Why'd you hit it? Sorry, go on with 67.
I'm scared of big black things. Just being a white guy. So
hashtag Drexel wants to know your location. Read 67 if you.
Dr. Bujo.
Buongiorno!
I don't care. Note documents the presentation of the treatment approach, goals of admission, and the concrete plans to Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier. Dr. Peters' note also reports the presentation of the treatment plan to Mrs. Pelletier at or around 3 p.m. on the afternoon of February 13th. Now, at this point, the only person who has been informed fully has been Mrs. Pelletier, and I'm not sure if it's mentioned in here, but they wanted her to sign a release form, essentially giving up everything, all their rights to see Justina, everything, and they hold the 51A over her head. If you don't sign it, we're going to give it to DCF and you're going to lose custody, and it's going to be a legal battle you really don't want to go through. So this is the best thing for you and Justina. It's essentially medical extortion. is what it is.
That's coming out in the next paragraph, actually. Bad Vibe says, this sounds contrary to the concept of do no harm and is assuming that several doctors are conspiring to harm the child when this psychological group are actively harming the child. And the problem is not that the psychological group have a different opinion than the specialists. The problem is that they didn't consult the specialists at all. Like, they could have a different opinion. And had they contact the specialist could be like, look, no. I know you work with head things. We've looked at this. We've had psychologists look at this, and you can talk to them about it. We don't think this is a head thing because we have this and this and this physical indicators of the problem. Had they done that, and still come to a different conclusion, or worked concurrently with the physical doctors involved, you wouldn't have this problem because they would have immediately just allowed them to have that second opinion.
Here's the problem. This is the main problem. They came into this looking for a test subject, for lack of a better term, because I believe it was the head of psychology, David R. DeMasso, I don't know which. He had written
You dumbasso. It's an Asian name.
I clearly this man looks Asian as shit. But he had written a book on adolescent psychiatry and somatoform disorders. And he actually posited the theory that something like 90% of the cases similar to mitochondrial disorder are actually a somatoform disorder, meaning that the brain is essentially playing a trick on the body. You believe something so much, you actually start creating, your body reacts by fooling you into believing it's legitimate. It's not really hypochondria where you might be saying, oh, I'm suffering from this for attention, or in the military from lingering, stuff like that. What it is you are fooling yourself into believing it's legitimate. You start to believe the lie. It's kind of like a very controlled break from reality. And that's why psychiatry, when you have something like that, you have to have psychological intervention. And she was kind of after he put this out, this became his test subject. And again, he was not mentioned in the lawsuit, which was really weird. He's not mentioned in the lawsuit at all, but he definitely seems to be the one behind everything. So, that was going on. I don't think they were trying to intentionally harm the child at first. Okay. I don't think that they came in thinking, okay, we're going to fuck this kid's shit up.
I think very few people on Earth intentionally harm children, including very, very abusive parents. And what I mean by that is not that, when they hit the kid that they're not intending to harm them. I think what I mean by that is I think when they wake up in the morning, they go, they don't think I'm out to harm my kid. There are some people like that, and that's very, very rare. It's usually a lack of education or a lack of control or some sort of negligence that results in behaviors that harm children in very specific ways. And I have a hard time believing that a bunch of psychologists wake up and say, we're going to harm this Justina chick. It's more like we're going to use this Justina chick, and they're not being responsible with their duty to not harm her. They're disregarding the harm that's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, they don't taper her off the medication. They stop it cold turkey. Everything is just immediately stopped. They stop all her, the Tagmadol and all the medication used for treating this stuff. And they start her on what they think will fix her. And at the end of the day, obviously it didn't.
They could have fixed this by making her smoke weed every day. No.
It wasn't legal at that point. But 5 or 6 years later, she's still stuck in a wheelchair. They don't believe she's ever going to walk again. She went from being able to walk without assistance to now she has to be pushed everywhere. She's 21 years old, I believe. She's never going to be the same person ever again. And we'll keep going because I really want to get into the stuff they did to her, how they cut off how they cut her off with the family, how they actually had a judge issue a gag order on the family.
Right. That's the crazy stuff here. And that's where the legal system is culpable as shit as well. Number 68, Miss Pelletier was described as being frustrated by a treatment plan which essentially took away the Pelletiers' right to meaningfully participate in their daughter's care. Let me quote, imagine my shock, right? Like the Paul Joseph Watson gayest little answer ever. Of course they're mad that they don't get to participate in their child's care. In response to her concerns, she was advised that the Child Medical Protection Team, headed by Dr. Alice Newton, the Child Protection Team case reviewer, had been consulted and a 51A had not been filed. Dr. Bajorno and Dr. Newton advised the parents that a 51A would be filed if they did not consent to the treatment plan. This is literally, under any other circumstances, this extortion. Is a criminal extortion. If I come to you as a prosecutor, for example, and I say, listen, you do this or I'm going to fucking file charges on you, that is criminal extortion. The prosecutor will be they would be prosecuted and they would be disbarred for that sort of action. If I, as an attorney, said I am going to, look, if you don't do this, I will file a civil suit against you. Not like we will consider all options, blah, blah. I will file a suit against you if you do not conform to my demands. That is criminal extortion. It's a definition of criminal extortion, what they did here.
And here's the thing is, if they were saying, we think Munchausen by proxy, factitious disorder by proxy is a factor here. We are assuming some type of medical abuse is going on the part of the family. As mandated reporters, they should have immediately been on the phone and saying, we have a 51A coming in on this subject. We need some help. We need some guidance. They hadn't even filed it yet. Or maybe they had filed it and they were trying to weasel their way into it. This is the bullshit that that Boston Children's pulled. And this is what pissed off a lot of people who watch this. This is what pissed people off. They lied. At that point, that's when people started going, okay, something untoward is happening here. Something is going on. And that's when people started looking into Dr. DeMasso and the other doctors who were publicly part of this. And that's when it was found out that Dr. DeMasso was head of Boston Children's Psychiatry, I believe. Again, I can't remember off the top of my head. And he had done this book saying that it was probably a somatoform disorder. That's when people took notice of it. And that's why, that's why a lot of this shit was happening. That's where a lot of the rage came from. A lot of politicians in Massachusetts on both the political right and the political left were saying something's wrong here. That child needs to be given back to the family. Deval Patrick, our governor, was the only politician I can think of off the top of my head who was saying every time, no, DCF knows what it's doing. Harvard knows what it's doing. This is the bullshit that was going on. And now you can see why people, the people watching this can see why both Nick and myself were absolutely pissed about this entire thing. Imagine you're a father or a mother and you're told we can file this if you don't agree with us. If you don't agree with it, we're going to extort you. How pissed would you be? I talked to a friend of mine, combat veteran, who said if they ever did that with him, he would have gotten his old fire team back together and he would have stormed that place. Hyperbolic. He wouldn't have.
No, he would have John Q'd the hospital.
There's this thing you just don't do with parents. And one of them is fuck with their child.
Yeah. So in the final sentence, it gets even worse. They then told Miss Pelletier that Justina, quote, will be taken away if consent to the treatment plan was withheld. We will take away your child if you don't agree to this treatment plan that you may not agree to because there's a different treatment plan available at Tufts. Tufts was treating this in a different way. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead on 69, Spectre.
The team met with the parents again on February 14th, 2015. Apparently, this was 2 years later. Mr. Pelletier.
That's got to be wrong.
That 100% is. Mr. Pelletier demanded that they discharge Justina so that she could be taken to Tufts to see Dr. Corson. Mr. Pelletier, who was naturally upset, was described as angry and abusive. Now, she had a pre-existing appointment at Tufts for that day. This wasn't him coming out and saying, hey, we want to take our child out of here and bring her back to Tufts. She had an actual appointment. Even Boston Children's stipulated to this. Yes, she had a pre-existing appointment, but we still refused to remove her. And this is the first time that Mr. Pelletier had been in the hospital, by the way. This was the first time. Everything he had been told he had been told over the phone by either his wife or the doctors when he was in a conference call.
I'm mentioning this to Sharon Young in the chat, but let me just say, Sharon Young said the typos in this document are astounding. And it seems that way, but let me just tell you that typos in the legal process, where you have thousands of words per document on deadlines with very, very busy people, typos in the legal profession are not only acknowledged, but they're expected. They're tolerated. They're no problem. And if there is any issue that's brought up, most people just figure out, like, look, they don't mean February 14th, 2015. They mean February 14th, 2013, because that's 2 days after this is all happening. They didn't wait 2 years, or 1 day after all this is happening. They didn't wait 2 years to deal with it. They meant 2013, and there's just some weird typo there. If there's a discrepancy in the typo, those are handled either by a supplemental document to the court, usually an informal letter, or they're dealt with by at oral argument very specifically. Yeah, it was 2015. Our legal aid was typing this up with a fury, and we missed it in proofreading. It's really not a big deal. Obviously, from the flow of events, this is the next day, not a year and a day later.
Yeah, when I was doing my criminal justice degree, one of the courses I took was writing legal documents. It was like a very basic course. And one of the things that the professor had said was, you have something like that, and unless the typo completely changes the meaning of the sentence or what you're trying to say, which is very rare, the opposing attorneys don't really fight that. They don't, it's something that it might happen. It happens a lot, but unless it dramatically changes the meaning and the intention, they just go whatever, they gloss over, because as much as anal retentive as attorneys can be, they're not that bad.
The other thing is those attorneys are also making typos. And if they try and get indignant about a typo rather than a specific, like you said, a specific meaning change in something, if it's pretty clear from the context, I mean, this is literally February 13th, 2013 to February 14th, 2015. They may ask the question, wait, was it actually 2 years? But they know the answer. They know already because their clients have notes. This is not 2 years later. This is literally the next day. And if they brought that up, they would look like colossal assholes to the judge. Although I want to be clear, Sharon Young says it's the ones that were supposedly copied from medical documents that I'm marveling at here. I don't know about those. I don't know if they're... I would assume they just did copy paste, and so they're probably not typographical errors, but maybe they are.
I mean, have you seen how doctors write? Have you seen how they write? I mean, there's a great example of this would be when they filed for the initial extension to reply to the cross appeal. They wanted to do it for the cross appeal and their cert replies, and the court only said the cross appeal was extended. So they filed a motion to say, hey, we don't think that this was properly, what we put in was properly explained. We wanted to apply it to the cert replies as well. That's the kind of thing that they would fight over or clarify just to make sure. That's the kind of typo. Something like this, they'd just be like, we know what you meant, continue on, because otherwise nothing, even less would get done in the legal system.
David Smith asks, is there a famous typo that caused the biggest problem? There probably is. I don't know what it is. But what I can tell you is my legal writing professor actually worked in my town, which is weird because he was my writing professor in the Twin Cities. He worked in my town at a law firm that I know and have gone against. It was great. They're actually they're a very good law firm. And I like those guys. We had very good conversations. But let me just say, he worked for them. And the day he was hired by them, they had a Minnesota Supreme Court hearing the next day. And they didn't want to deal with it because the issues were largely moot and they didn't care if they lost. So they sent this guy to go do the arguments. The day after he's hired, they're like, oh, by the way, you got to go to St. Paul and do an argument in front of the Minnesota Supreme Court. And he went and won and achieved legend status immediately because they thought there's like, well, who cares if what happens with this case? And he goes and wins an oral argument in front of the Supreme Court. But that guy ended up in his private practice representing a client and misplacing either a comma or a decimal point, and I don't know. And it cost his client $10 million.
Jeez.
And that was, by the way, that wasn't malpractice, but it was a contract case, and he misplaced a comma or a decimal point, cost his client $10 million, was not malpractice. By the way, everybody who thinks that you're going to sue a lawyer for malpractice, like dumbass fucking Ron Toye. Oh, I'm going to sue. No, you're not, unless it has to be so blatantly bad because we're the ones. Lawyers enforce the laws on lawyers, and lawyers make mistakes, and they know this. So do the ones who enforce the law on other lawyers. If it's a mistake, you're not getting malpractice. If it's actively, intentionally bad, then you're going to get malpractice. This guy, right. He was obviously immediately fired from the firm that he was in. But yeah, a comma, a misplaced comma or a decimal point can cost your client $10 million. And that's what happened with him. That was in a contract case. In a civil case.
What's the cutoff? What's the cutoff so you don't lose your job?
There is no cutoff. If you fuck up, you lose your job. I don't care if it's $1, you're going to lose your job. The question is, what's the cutoff for malpractice? Higher than 10 million. But the reality is, like in a contract case where the language is very important and calculated and crafted, it's very different from some other civil case where the briefs have deadlines and you have very busy people writing them. They don't care about typos. We make fun of the typos because it's funny, but they're all over the legal profession. So this is a long rant. Could you sue your lawyer for civil damages? Maybe, except the problem is you purportedly reviewed and signed your approval to that document. So no,
you can sue for whatever you want. It's a question of will it be successful.
We cover our asses with moo-moos bigger than those that cover Tess Holiday. So good luck. So number 70, Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier were summarily removed from the hospital and separated from their child Justina by force and or the threat of force by Boston Children's Hospital security and given a no trespassing order. The Massachusetts and Connecticut Departments of Education of Children and Families, DCF, were contacted by Dr. Newton and a 51A was filed. There is no indication from the records that Dr. Newton ever assessed, evaluated, or even interviewed Justina. Dr. Newton did not consult with Dr. Hokinson, that's her psychiatrist or psychologist. Dr. Corson, that's her, I don't remember, that's her general practitioner. He's a mitochondrial specialist, the genetic specialist. Right. Or Dr. Flores, the GI specialist. Or any of Justina's long-term highly qualified specialists. So he says, look, we've got an appointment at this other place. We want you to discharge her so we can take her to this other place. That alone makes them file a 51A and remove the child-parent relationship.
That's not the only reason they filed it. Mr. Pelletier ended up calling the Boston Police Department, claiming that his child was being kidnapped by the hospital. The police actually responded with some 8 officers who pretty much got between security, the doctors, and the Pelletiers. And the cops talked to the administrators of the hospital, and the administrators said there's a 51A going in for child abuse and neglect. We'd like them removed from the property. The police came over and said, look, here's what we have to do. They're filing a 51A. We have to remove you. We get no choice in this matter. We have to remove you. You can take this up. And I believe the general counsel for the hospital was there. And he said, to their benefit, he said, you can expedite your appeal of this decision with the courts, and they should hear you within 2 to 3 business days. So it wasn't just they were removed. It was they actually called the police on the hospital, and the police had to act in the hospital's interest.
Which is ridiculous. I'm still going for it. I'm still saying. I'm
surprised that's not even mentioned in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm surprised that that's not mentioned in here.
Go ahead on 71.
Social worker Paulette Brown of DCF signed a sworn affidavit in support of the petition to temporarily remove Justina from the custody of her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier, and grant custody of Justina to DCF on February 15, 2013, just 5 days after Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier had voluntarily brought their child to Boston Children's Hospital for help.
Things escalated very quickly. Number 72, mitochondrial disorder. By the way, it's Pelletier. We're pronouncing it still wrong. Apparently it's Pelletier, according to the chat. I don't know. Mitochondrial disorder had not been ruled out as an organic cause of her symptoms. The flu had not been ruled out as an organic cause of her symptoms. And there is no indication that Justina's dehydration had been resolved. Go ahead.
She was actually brought in because they thought she had the flu. Like she was presenting the symptoms for having the flu. And when you have mitochondrial disease, again, your energy production in the cells is already compromised. The flu compromises it further. It is not uncommon for somebody with a severe mitochondrial disorder who contracts the flu to have to be put on a ventilator to breathe for them. It's that bad.
Right.
So that's pretty much what happened. The flu hadn't been ruled out yet. The social worker reported that the Boston Children's Hospital has spoken to about the concerns, specifically Dr. Jurian Peters, neurologist, Dr. Alice Newton, child protection team case reviewer on this case, and Dr. Simona Bujo, psychologist. I don't care. And they reported that the child is currently not walking or feeding herself, and she is unable to function on a regular day. The concerns the doctors have is factitious disorder by proxy, Munchausen by proxy. The doctor stated that the parents have been seeking medical treatment and now are obstructing child's care.
They're obstructing the child's care, remember, by trying to take her to a pre-existing appointment. She further reported that Justina had, quote, multiple diagnoses, and, quote, 2 of these diagnoses are debatable. This is a fucking social worker. Social workers, I love all social workers, are the dregs of the college education system.
To be fair, the social worker is just writing in the affidavit what she was told by the doctors. So you can't put the blame right there on the social worker.
Absolutely can put the blame on the social worker. This is someone with a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work, most likely, going against just diagnoses by several professionals with exponentially more education and experience in the medical field than this person. So let me say, 2 of these diagnoses are debatable. Yes, I get that she's taking it from a doctor. She's putting it in a sworn affidavit and signing it. I don't care. I hate social worker obstruction on medical or legal issues. They're not qualified to talk on them, and they think they are. They're like, oh no, we deal with kids in medical situations all the time. We're qualified to talk. Oh no, we deal with the courts all the time. Therefore, we are smarter than the lawyers. It's Russell Greer syndrome. Russell thinks that because he's a paralegal, he's better at reading the law than a lawyer. It's not true. They don't have the training. They do not have the training. Okay, anyway, are debatable.
Well, as I said, she's taken the words of Harvard doctors, not the Tufts doctors. It's the Harvard doctors. Massachusetts general law requires that when DCF is involved for the court proceedings, the caseworker has to file an affidavit. Again, I can't blame the social worker for basically putting in the affidavit what she's being told.
Fuck social workers.
But, you know.
Are debatable, and one is that she had a stroke around birth, which is known and true. They literally they say, look, she had a stroke. We can prove that, but all of the other diagnoses we can't prove. Those are debatable. The doctors say the child has metabolic diseases regarding how the body produces energy. The doctors say child has, and I'm fine with the doctors say comments, by the way. The doctors say child also has issues regarding the movement of the stool. The doctors say child's current presentation of what is wrong with child now has nothing to do with any of the 3 diagnoses mentioned. The doctors do not know how the parents picked the current diagnoses and that they are hard to disprove. That is bullshit. The doctors, of course, know how the doctors picked the current diagnoses. They were given by other doctors. There's a medical record at play. All they have to do is contact Tufts and they can get the entire chart, which presumably at this point, at least, they've done. They've gotten the chart and said, this specialist and this specialist produced these diagnoses. Look at this shit. Oh my God. Go with 75 before I bust a gasket.
The social worker also reported that Boston Children's Hospital doctors stated that Connecticut Children's Hospital does not want to treat the child anymore due to problems working with the family. That's a bold-faced lie. That parents discharged child against medical advice when they disagreed with the course of treatment, and that Tufts was, quote, trying to block child's admission from there as they have similar concerns. These statements were false. So they're claiming Tufts is trying to prevent us from taking care of this child.
Yeah. That is insane right there. There's no evidence to support the idea that Tufts was trying to do this or that Connecticut's Children's Hospital was preventing this. They literally made it up and then told the social worker, who then puts it in a sworn affidavit. Number 76, right. Based on the allegations presented by the affidavit and the Boston Children's Hospital protection team, DCF obtained custody of Justina on February 15, 2013. This all happens the same day. A sitter was placed by Justina's bedside at all times, and hospital security was placed outside her door. The parents were denied visitation altogether. Guys, yep. I have dealt in cases where the parents have a court history of physically beating children, intimidating, screaming at them, and then literally taking a closed fist and leaving bruises on a child, and they are not denied visitation altogether. They're given a supervised visitation. The idea right. that you would separate a parent from a child entirely is what it is. It is one of the most sacred rights. In fact, it's such a sacred right that the federal government has no say in your relationship with your child. They will always, always, always defer to the state. It is the last vestige of 10th Amendment respect, where the federal government will say, no. The states have sole authority over the parent-child relationship because it is so localized and so important. The idea that you would separate that based on this entirely without supervised visitation is insanity. I know people who give their kids drugs, illegal drugs, are not removed from visitation. They're given supervised visitation. Sorry, go ahead, 77.
It's not just that. the thing is that Massachusetts puts a lot of prestige and a lot of weight behind what the doctors at these teaching schools are, because they're Ivy League. They're such world-renowned schools. Everybody who wants to be a doctor wants to go to them. It's kind of like a badge of honor from Massachusetts, and they do a lot to protect the reputation of these schools. That's why this reaction has been this way. Yeah. Let's see. Which one are we on?
77.
Okay. Despite the fact that the defendants claim that Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier were over-treating Justina, within days of Justina's admission, the neurology and GI teams with DCF approval made a decision to place an NG tube for nutritional rehabilitation. I don't know what an NG tube is.
Go ahead with 78.
The defendants never took any steps to correct the misrepresentations in Brown's affidavit that claimed Justina was suffering from Munchausen by proxy.
Number 79, Dr. Bajorno further opined that, quote, given the long time that Justina has been in a sick role, the long time of less than optimal functioning, and the years of significant medical involvement, it is very likely that her recovery will require an equally long time with much psychiatric support. This type of support is available only in a psychiatric medical type unit, as her medical needs are equally important, need to be integrated in the treatment, and need monitoring during her recovery. Go on 80.
So basically they're saying we are uniquely qualified to do this.
Right.
Justina remained hospitalized with the neurology department for over 2 months until April 2013. During this time, Boston Children's actively sought to disprove the diagnosis of mitochondrial disorder. Justina had a guard outside her door and was only allowed 1 to 2 hours of visitation and 2 hours of phone calls with her family per week.
In April 2013, against the wishes of Justina and her parents, Justina was transferred to the locked psychiatric unit at Boston Children's Hospital, Bader 5, and she remained there until January 2014. Justina was allowed only 1 to 2 hours of visitation, 2 hours of phone calls with her family per week. The defendant, Colleen Ryan, MD, was responsible for Justina's psychiatric treatment while on Bader 5. They literally put her in a padded fucking room.
Yep.
They put this girl in a padded room to keep her away from her parents. I'll read 82 and you can do 83. Justina's treatment records report that Justina was, quote, danger to self because she was unable to attend activities of daily living. Go ahead.
While she was locked up, Dr. Corson made numerous attempts to meet with the treatment team in order to advocate on behalf of his patient and her family in an effort to reunify them. All of those efforts were rejected. The hospital was saying, Dr. Corson, fuck off.
Right.
In one such instance, Dr. Corson advised Dr. Ryan that the family was willing to engage in cooperative efforts with BCH in order to reunite with their daughter. Dr. Corson suggested that she try a different approach and give the parents a reason to believe that the relationship between them could be positive and helpful for Justina. Approximately 2 hours after that conversation, and without reason or warning, Dr. Ryan reduced Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier's visitation time to 1 hour per week.
And important to note, Dr. Corson, I believe at this time is at Boston Children's. Like he's at that same hospital.
No, Dr. Flores was.
Dr. Flores. Oh, my bad. My bad. Ignore everything I just said. 84. So we're on Justina's care and treatment on Bader 5. How much more do we have to go, by the way?
I don't think it's too much longer. I mean,
it's pretty long.
The jurisdiction starts at the literal bottom of page 21, so it's not too much longer.
Okay, let's burn through these because the treatment stuff is not going to be super interesting. While on I'll read these two. While on Bader 5, Justina was deprived of direct sunlight, deprived of exercise and time outdoors, deprived of meaningful therapeutic treatment, and deprived of all meaningful and important familial relations she had ever known. While on Bader 5, Justina was denied her right to an education and denied her right to worship. Go ahead.
While on Beta 5, Justina was subjected to conditions that were far more harsh and punitive than the other patients. By way of example and not limitation, Justina was deprived of visitation and contact with her family far more so than the others. All other patients were allowed visitation to the full extent allowed on Beta 5 policies. Justina was only allowed 1 hour of visitation per week and limited phone calls. No other patients were deprived of visitation as punishment. Justina and her parents were deprived of visitation as punishment for the parents' alleged violations of their individualized visitation guidelines.
Similarly, unlike the other patients, Justina was denied visitation on holidays and special family days. All other patients saw their families or at least had phone calls on major holidays and birthdays. Justina was forbidden from seeing her family on Easter, her birthday, her parents' and siblings' birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and Christmas. It's insane restrictions for a parent-child relationship. Go ahead on 88.
While on Beta 5, Justina would often be left alone in her wheelchair for hours at a time if she would not or could not wheel herself to common areas. From time to time, other patients would attempt to move Justina to a common area. Often, the patient would be scolded and told that she, Justina, quote, has to do it herself, unquote.
While on Beta 5, Justina would often be left on a toilet for long periods of time in an effort to get her to void her bladder or bowels. Justina's assertions that she was physically incapable of doing so would be ignored, remembering that mitochondrial disorder literally prevented this to the point that she had a fucking tube put into her bowel, which they would use to flush saline in so she could poop. Go ahead.
Photographs show that while on Beta 5, Justina was often found to have bruises on her feet and ripped toenails caused by her feet being dragged along the floor while being pushed in her wheelchair. She would appear with bruises on her belly, abdomen, and back.
While on Beta 5, the staff would often report to the family and DCF that Justina was making progress with eating, schooling, and becoming more mobile. However, Justina would smuggle messages to her family hidden in art projects. In her smuggled messages, she told the family that she was not being schooled, that she was not walking, and that she wanted to go home. Literally fucking North Korea prisoner tactics being used. Go ahead.
She started doing that because at first the mail she'd be putting out would be letting the family know this is what's going on with me, and they would open up the mail and read it and decide if that could go out. So yeah, it's like North Korea. Everything was being scrutinized, and after that, they said you can't write any more notes. So she would put it in like little origami and stuff like that. And that's how she would smuggle stuff out. Family phone calls to Justina were monitored by Beta staff. The phone calls would be immediately terminated by staff if the conversation breached the purported treatment plan that prohibited Justina's family from discussing her physical health. In addition, phone calls were often abruptly terminated for no reason at all, causing great emotional distress for Justina and her family. One of the reasons that it would be shut off was if the family just inadvertently asked, "How are you feeling today?" Yep. They would shut it off. They would terminate it right away.
Yeah, and that's literally, you have someone who's been sick at this point for multiple, several years. Ask how they're doing. They're in rehabilitation without your ability to have impact on how that rehabilitation treatment is going. The natural conversation is, how are you doing? How's your treatment going? If they did that, click, fuck you. While on Beta 5, Justina celebrated her 15th birthday on May 24th, 2013. Doxed. She was not allowed a visitation or phone calls that day. Several family members purchased birthday gifts from the gift shop and arranged for them to be delivered to her room. Staff intercepted the gifts and kept them in a closet for weeks after her birthday. Justina was never even told until weeks later that anyone had attempted to send her a birthday gift or card. She was under the belief that her family had forgotten her birthday when, in truth, her family was denied access to her on her birthday. Go ahead.
It's almost like dealing with a cult. Scientology, we've all heard the stories about how they completely separate you from people who have broken away from Scientology. That's exactly what this sounds like. It's almost like indoctrination to a cult.
Yep. It's
while on Beta 5, while on Beta 5, Justina was denied medications prescribed to her by her regular treating physicians. By way of example and not limitation, Justina's hypertension medication was discontinued. Her treatment records reveal that she suffered from tachycardia thereafter. By way of further example, her B12 supplement was discontinued. Justina was recently treated for B12 deficiency.
She has fucking high blood pressure, and they discontinued her high blood pressure medication because they're presumably considering part of it the somatoform symptoms.
The anxiety, the constant anxiety, I guess, it does have an effect on your blood pressure. If you're constantly worried or anxious or nervous, it does raise your blood pressure. I
wouldn't know. I've never been nervous in my life.
If they try to treat that, then I could see them doing it. But again, not being a doctor, I've never heard of them just pulling you off the medication without actually having the anxiety under control. I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Let's I'll do 95 and 96. While on Beta 5, the defendants and others knew that Justina did not require residential psychiatric treatment or inpatient hospitalization. While on Beta 5, Justina was subjected to medical research and experimentation. Go ahead.
Remember how I said that they had that thing about they believe that mitochondrial disease was somatoform? There you go.
Yep.
While on Beta 5, Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier were repeatedly threatened by the defendants and others that Justina would never be returned to them if they did not accept the diagnosis of somatoform, accept the termination of their right to make medical decisions regarding Justina's care, and adopt the treatment plan devised by Boston Children's Hospital doctors. Indeed, when Dr. Ryan recommended on December 3rd, 2013, that Justina be transitioned to a foster family, that recommendation was not based on any allegation of abuse or neglect. Specifically, Dr. Ryan cited the parents' continued inability to engage in a family reunification plan, i.e., accept that BCH, doctor's diagnosis and treatment plan, as a basis for her opinion that parental rights and custody should be completely, irrevocably, and permanently terminated.
I have to point out, losing your right to have medical decisions in your child is harder than losing your permanent physical custody of a child. So you can have a parent who is permanently unable to see the child because they are a physical danger. They will still have a right to make and consent to medical decisions in the child. Oftentimes, if the parent is simply negligent and cannot care for the child because the child's in danger due to the parent not feeding them or whatever, they will still have a right to make medical decisions. This is way beyond the bounds of what actual abusive parents get at this point. While on Beta 5, the defendants knew or should have known that Justina's condition was caused by physical causes. Specifically, her treatment records indicate that Justina's diagnosis included psychological components and mitochondrial disorder, the same diagnosis that they had denied upon her admission. Go ahead.
Yep. In fact, despite the fact that her Beta 5 treatment records repeatedly indicate that Justina suffered from probable mitochondrial disease, Dr. Ryan concluded on December 23rd, 2013, that Justina's presentation was, quote, inconsistent with mitochondrial disease, end quote. However, her treatment records indicate that no provider ever excluded the probable diagnosis of mitochondrial disorder, and as described below, Justina is still treated for this condition. Excuse me, to this day. I got hiccups.
Yep. And Dr. Ryan is also not a specialist in genetic or gastroenterology, who would have. She's not actually qualified to make this diagnosis determination. While on Beta 5, the defendants and others knew or should have known that Justina was not being abused by Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier. Nonetheless, they refused to engage in reasonable efforts to reunite Justina with her family. Instead, the family was repeatedly told that they would never get Justina back unless they conceded to the diagnosis of somatoform, accepted the treatment plan terminating their right to participate in making medical decisions for Justina, and agreed to the false allegation that they had medically abused Justina. Let me briefly say that as a foster parent and knowing some other foster parents, I met a foster child whose parents not only smoked marijuana and other illegal substances with the child present, but forced the child to sleep in a dirty cat litter box as a bed. That family was offered a reunification plan. So just to just to set a contrast between actual abuse and what's going on. You don't agree with our doctors. You don't agree with this diagnosis for your child when there's another actual existing diagnosis. Is take away all your rights. You don't get to see them. Whereas someone who forced their children to sleep in an actual cat litter box, a dirty cat litter box every night, was allowed a reunification plan with their child. Go ahead on 101.
While Justina was on Beta 5, the defendants and others repeatedly threatened, coerced, and attempted to intimidate Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier into adopting the purported treatment plan and diagnosis. When they refused to do so, they were met with punitive reductions to their visitations with Justina and threatened that their parental rights would be terminated. Remember extortion?
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier were met with and intimidated by security guards who supervised their visits and forcibly removed them from the building when they demanded a second opinion or objected to treatment options imposed by the defendants and others. Go ahead.
Despite the lack of physical progress and the acknowledged diagnosis of probable mitochondrial disorder, the defendants and others continued to treat Justina as if the cause of her symptoms was exclusively psychiatric in nature. Essentially, however, the psychiatric treatment Justina received on Beta 5 was simply to pretend that her physical symptoms did not exist, since the doctor said they were all in her head.
Sorry, I'm typing a message in chat. Someone said those parents should be beaten. Those parents actually did rehab, and their kid turned out okay. Believe it or not, it's kind of crazy, but that's how it goes. At no point during her inpatient psychiatric stay was Justina ever evaluated, assessed, or treated for the emotional shock and distress she was suffering as a result of being forcibly locked up against her will and isolated from her parents, her sisters, her home, her school, and her friends. Remember, if nothing else, they removed her from school for over a year without her or her parents' consent. If a parent did that to a child, they would go to jail.
Yep.
Go ahead on 105. This is effort to terminate Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier's parental rights permanently. So remember, all those threats of permanently terminating their parental rights, they actually try. So go ahead.
Ultimately, when Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier continued to resist the lockup of their daughter, and the stripping away of their rights as parents, the defendants, in concert with DCF, sought permanent termination of their rights. As a result of their false allegations of child abuse, Mr. and Mrs. Pelletier's parental rights were permanently terminated in early 2014, a decision which was later reversed when the false nature of the allegations came to light. So they actually lost all their rights as the parents of the child. Everything was transferred over to DCF.
Can't imagine not shooting everybody involved at this point. Like, honestly,
in Minecraft.
No, I mean it in real life. Justina's parents are saints for not literally killing everyone involved. Justina was ultimately returned to her family after being imprisoned at Boston Children's Hospital against her wishes and those of her parents. The defendants and others at Boston Children's Hospital have intentionally and or knowingly falsely imprisoned other children after purportedly diagnosing them with somatoform and or falsely accusing the parents of medical child abuse. Go on 108.
In one such similar case, the parents were coerced into giving informed consent for an admission to Beta 5 under threat of DCF involvement and termination of parental rights. In other similar cases, as was the case here, refusal to give informed consent for a drastic treatment plan resulted in the actual involvement of DCF and the courts to enforce the radical, invasive, and inappropriate treatment plans.
I want to address something. Aderic in the chat says, did Tufts report the parents to CPS? And if true, did that have any bearing on the Boston reporting them as well? I keep saying everyone say Tufts did and that the parents were lying. Tufts did. That's in the lawsuit. Tufts did report them. And after an investigation by Connecticut Child Services,
DCF.
Yeah, they decided that there was no evidence of any sort of abuse. So that was... Go ahead.
Yeah, Tufts initially filed it as a cover your ass kind of thing, and they filed it with Connecticut's DCF because the family
parents
lived in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Right. They investigated, like it was like a multi-month investigation. And at the end of it, Connecticut came back and said, no, there is literally nothing to prove this. And even Tufts at the time was saying, you know, maybe we were a little hasty on this. So Tufts actually came out and said before there was a final ruling by DCF, yeah, we may have been a little hasty. We apologize for it. And that's why the family wasn't so angry at Tufts after that.
Okay. In other wait.
110.
110. Similarly, defendant Dr. Newton, the so-called medical child abuse expert for the hospital, has been the subject of public scrutiny after her medically unsupportable opinions resulted in the wrongful imprisonment of adults that were wrongfully accused of child abuse and murder, including but not limited to the infamous and tragic Irish nanny case. So the doctor who was the source of a lot of this stuff was also has aspersions cast upon her opinions. Bad Vibe says DCF, DHS, CPS, CSD can get fucked. This is the crap where they do more harm than good. The system is subjectively as bad as situations they are supposed to remedy. I will say that there are rarely situations where they do more good than harm. This is based on well over a decade of experience, both pre-law degree and post-law degree with CHS, or CPS, Child and Protective Services in Minnesota. I do not, and this is me as a foster parent, this is me as an attorney, I do not have any faith in their ability to do the job that they say they do. I have seen them leave actual abusers with full access to children, and I've seen them leave simply not great parents with no access to children and have their parental rights terminated permanently based merely on their lack of ability to afford competent counsel. The CPS can eat all of the giant Preston post-pegging dildos for all I fucking care. They're garbage. Sorry, go on with 111.
The practice of executing a strategic and rapid termination of parental rights for parents who withhold consent regarding the diagnosis and treatment of somatoform has been sufficiently established and accepted conduct at Boston Children's Hospital as to have become colloquially referred to by the defendants using ERSAT's medical terminology as parentectomy.
That's a removal of the parents, a surgical removal of the parents.
True.
So going on, we got 3 more brief paragraphs. I'll read the first 2, you read the last one, and then we'll wrap up. Okay. This is Justina's care and treatment after Bader 5. Justina continues to be treated for her trauma by Dr. Hokinson, the psychologist who was treating her at the time she was wrongfully imprisoned at Children's Hospital. Justina has suffered severe and debilitating psychiatric trauma as a result of being held against her will in a locked psychiatric ward, isolated from her friends and families, and enduring several months of treatment in which her physical symptoms and disease were denied by her primary caregivers. Justina continues to be treated for her mitochondrial disorder.
Justina's parents have also suffered incredible emotional and financial hardship. Mr. Pelletier was unable to continue his work as a successful financial advisor because it was a full-time job to fight for custody of Justina. The family spent all of their savings and went into substantial debt in order to fight for their custody of Justina. They are currently bankrupt, spending much of their time addressing the substantial injuries Justina suffered as a result of the defendant's negligence, and Mr. Pelletier is attempting to rekindle his career.
And just so you know, rekindling or kindling in the first place, a financial advisor role is a 2 to 3 year endeavor at minimum. And it's, you're unlikely to succeed. You have a 2% chance of success. That's the statistics for being a financial advisor. Take this from someone who's worked in the financial industry in several different roles, and as someone who considered being a financial advisor, was actually courted by a company to run a local branch here in my area. But I decided not to do that. That because I didn't want to hate my life. And also they wanted me to terminate my law license to do so, which was bullshit. But yeah, you have a 2% chance of success, and it takes 2 to 3 years to get off the ground if you will succeed. So they're in real trouble. Matt the Beast says, this is one of those times where I wish those knowingly involved would be prosecuted after they lose their jobs, like the British politicians and police saying all of these teens and preteens decided to be prostitutes and therefore it wasn't rape. Shut up now. Yeah, buddy. All right. Should we I've got super chats, but did you want to add anything before we do them?
Oh, I guess I'll give you the give the audience the stuff that wasn't included.
Yeah.
There was a gag order placed on the family.
Right.
Mr. Pelletier had spoken to Fox 25. I think he talked to VB about this case. He had also done at least one interview with Jeff Cooner, a radio host in Boston on WRKO. I believe he had also done one with Howie Carr, who's nationally syndicated. After that happened, they filed for a gag order and it was granted to them the entire time. 18 months after they lost visitation, Boston Children's finally said she's not getting better despite the 18 months we've said she's making progress. They pawned her off to Connecticut Children's Hospital. They pawned her off there. And Boston DCF, Massachusetts DCF, came out and said, we no longer have any say over her. We can't be held liable for what's going on. And they actually tried to argue that since she went to Connecticut Children's Hospital, she got worse. She was doing terrific, under the 18 months, but in the span of 2 weeks at Connecticut Children's Hospital, she just mysteriously, she got worse.
A gag order is a prior restraint on speech, which is subject to strict scrutiny. Winning a gag order is near impossible. Winning a gag order for parents discussing the health of their child publicly because they believe that their rights have been infringed by the state shouldn't ever be granted. It should literally, imagine saying, you can have an opinion about the well-being of your child. You just can't say it to anyone else. And if you do, it's a criminal punishment for violation of a court order. That is outside of, look, murderers who attempt to murder their children get to have the opinion about their child's development from prison after they're convicted for life or death sentences. They still get to share the opinion on the development of their child. Again, I can't stress enough how insane this actually ended up being. And it's just because you cannot fight the state when the state has a vested attack against you.
And again, Massachusetts places a lot of power with these teaching hospitals because of the prestige. And this, I originally wanted to do this when the COVID quarantine was hitting because it was a great example of the government's abuse of personal rights. And this really, I think, summed up how a state can do this. Pretty much everybody except DCF and the governor was saying, what the hell's going on here? DCF and the governor were saying, no, it's good. She's okay. The long and short of this is that they sued. The lawsuit actually went to trial in December of last year, January of this year. And at the end of February, the jury came back and ruled against the Pelletiers. I don't know why. I don't have the actual ruling in front of me. But from what I understand, they ruled because the state supported the move by the hospital. So they should, the hospital couldn't be wrong if they had the backing of the state. That's, from what I understand, that was the reasoning for it. It's going to be appealed. One of the lawyers who actually commented on this case and really pushed the gag order being done, not that he was supporting the gag order, but he was supporting the parents, was Alan Dershowitz.
Oh,
Alan
that's why
Dershowitz
they
actually-
lost.
No,
I'm
Alan Dershowitz
kidding.
was not representing them. I know.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Go ahead.
He actually said that he would have taken this case if not for the fact that he was representing the president in his impeachment.
Yeah. I want to point out something about juries. My civil procedure professor is a highly accomplished, nationally famous attorney, Roger Haydock. You can look him up. He has a very successful litigation career in very high profile cases. Anyway, one of Roger Haydock's personal businesses outside of being an attorney, being a consultant for companies, is to perform mock jury trials. And the interesting thing about mock jury trials is you create 3 mock juries. You never get one mock jury for a mock jury trial. You create, 3, 4, 5, however many the company is willing to fund. But let's say your standard is about 3. And the interesting thing is, if you have 3 mock juries, you oftentimes get 3 results from the exact same arguments. So instead of having 12 people decide, you have 36 people in 3 groups of 12, all literally watch the exact same case, and then they go back and debate with their group of 12, and they will come up with different, either they will have a jury verdict for the one party, for the other party, or for split. And juries are unreliable. Juries are stupid because juries are staffed by people who are stupid. There's no way around it. So if you want to know why a jury ruled against the Pelletiers here, it's because, frankly, juries are just juries. They're just juries of people, and people are dumb in groups. People in groups are dumb.
Right.
Individual persons can be smart.
I will say this, even though the jury ruled against them, there is a law being taken up again called Justina's Law, and it's being put forth through Congress. And the idea behind it is that federal grant money cannot be used for medical research on a ward of the state. Doesn't matter if they're mentally infirm or whatever. If the state has any kind of custody, or the hospital has custody and has removed the parental rights of the parents, that federal money cannot be used for experimentation reasons. So if you want to see that passed, get in touch with your congressperson and talk to them and say, I want this passed. That being said, give me like 1 minute.
Yeah. Oh, you got to buzz out.
I can hear cats fighting.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go ahead and start reading chats because we got to wrap up. We got to wrap up this show, and I will be doing a Twitch watch party tonight of Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme. We did Bloodsport the other night, House of a Thousand Corpses last night, Kickboxer tonight. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Also, subscribe to my other channel, Rekieta Media, if you have not. There will be nerd content over there. There's some movie reviews are coming, and book reviews as well, as like video game live streams and stuff move to there. As I'm doing less video gaming on Twitch and more of the watch parties, because they're so much fun. So if you want to watch Kickboxer tonight, it's tonight, baby. Van Damme dancing scene, that's coming. I hope you're ready for it. Okay, Matt the Beast says, this is one of those times where I wish those knowingly involved would be prosecuted after they lose it. Oh wait, I read this one. Baal with a big donation. Thank you so much. Says, I'm getting BS vibes here, but if not, what the fuck? How'd this happen? Guess the lawsuit will prove what is truth or not, maybe. Side note, I loved giving a monthly donation to your channel while I could. Here's a send-off for you, Nick. Love your content. Hey, thanks, buddy. And I'm happy to receive the send-off and happy to receive the monthly contributions before. But please always make sure your own financial situation is in check before you ever worry about me. I am great. Thank you so much. All right. TV goes live. Wait, no, damn it. Why am I doing that? My brain is broken. We've got Chibi Dirt Golems. Says, did you hear about what happened in Atlanta today after the announcement of charges levied against the officer in the Rashad Brooks shooting? Entire zones of Atlanta Police Department went home. ATL asked surrounding communities for help and were told no. Good. Excuse me. That prosecution looks entirely political, and political prosecutions that is what we were going away from England for. The leveraging of the state to enforce the state's wishes, the leveraging of the justice system to enforce the state's wishes. No, anybody who does that should be strung up. Chibi Dirt Golem says, email from APD officers to Steve Deese. Quote, Atlanta police officers are refusing to answer the radio and walking off the job. The county can go screw themselves. If you want a society without police, we'll give you one. Let it burn. Crusader Saracen says, so is the hospital boned? Not currently. Has to come back on appeals. Appealing a jury verdict is near impossible. It happens, but it's rare. We'll have to see. I'll be following this. I'm really curious to see what the judges or what the jury's ruling on this was, or what the appeals court has to say about it. So we'll be going with it. Kiwi Goes Live says, what's your pick for best teen sex comedy? Not Another Teen Movie, I guess. No, Can't Hardly Wait. Does that count as a sex comedy? Only because Jennifer Love Hewitt is ridiculously sexy in that movie. I don't know if that qualifies, but it's a great one. Kiwi Goes Live says, man, I wasted that last super chat. Save it for Drex. I'll ask him. I'll try and remember to ask him as well. Angry Bainling says, Spectre. Oh, damn it. Spectre, can you hear me? I'll save that one for you.
I can hear you.
Oh, Angry Bainling says, Spectre, what happened to your face? Cowpox? Question mark.
I've said it before. I suffered from cystic acne as a child, and I had a spider bite that I had allergic reaction. So they mixed and it became really bad. That's what happened to me.
That's a nasty combination.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Bat Goat says, anti-tug crater-faced jizz drinker makes leave this chat. I don't know if that, I assume that's you.
Yeah, it's probably me. I don't care.
Do you drink jizz?
No, I don't. I drink coffee and water.
Well, thanks for clearing that up, because that would be weird.
I wish the Accutane had cleared up my face a little better.
Skits Comics says, Skits has launched. Back this great comic book now on Indiegogo. That's SKITS. Check it out on Indiegogo if you want. Bad Dragonite says, 1 in 4,000 is twice as common as a shiny Pokemon. Thank you. Very helpful. Very helpful. Let's see. Nix Hex says, I loved Can't Hardly Wait when it came out and I was 12. Watched it in my 20s and it was terribad, even for that genre. Really depressed me. But yes, Jennifer Love Hewitt was beautiful. I mean, dude. Jennifer Love Hewitt and Can't Hardly Wait. Go look it up. Google it. Try not to have friction burns. Nikki J says, I've given a few girls intestinal massage. That's the spirit, buddy. Andrew War Snowboard says, Mikel Casanova is taking heat for positively reviewing The Last of Us 2. Perhaps it's not the giant trash fire that we thought. No, it is a giant trash fire that we thought, but Mikel Casanova can certainly have an opinion of it that's positive. That doesn't mean anything. He's a good dude, and people should go ahead and, always you should check out stuff for yourself. You should just consider whether or not you want to fund The Last of Us 2, given the content and the actions of the team, which you should do for everything you consume. And if you say, I don't fucking care, then don't fucking care and buy the thing. That's fine. DCV Titan says, hey, if those civilians didn't want to be bathed in napalm and white phosphorus, then they shouldn't have built their town in a war zone.
Napalm sticks like glue.
We discussed
and children too.
We discussed a great weapon in the live chat Wednesday today that was used to take out an ISIS leader.
Oh, yes, it's the ninja bomb.
Guys, it's a ninja bomb. It's a missile with swords on it, like 5 or 6 swords that spring out right before it impacts, and it doesn't explode. It just shreds through a person and everybody around them.
Fucking car.
Yeah, right through a car, right through an Al-Qaeda. No big deal. It left just a gallon of blood in the ground below the car. It was amazing.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the fucked up individual that came up with that? They're just drinking one day, and it's like, hold on, Tony, I got a great idea. What? A bomb? But there's knives.
Rocket-propelled swords, baby. Rocket-propelled swords. I actually owe you an apology. I said it wasn't a flechette because it wasn't projecting the flechette knives or whatever outwards, right. But it is categorized as a flechette weapon by the military. So I wanted to say that it is a flechette, even though it doesn't follow the categorization that I recognize as flechette. So.
It's not the category. The way you described it initially, it sounded like the front of the missile would pop off and it would just rain knives down on someone. That's why I was thinking flechette. Well, while you were looking for waifus, that motherfucker who created that bomb was training with the art of the katana.
Yeah, that guy was great. Aspie, hey Aspie, how's it going, buddy? He sent looks like a song or a poem here. He says, "Girl, I want to take you to a gay bar. I want to take you to a gay bar. I want to take you to a gay bar, gay bar, gay bar. Let's start a war. Let's start a nuclear war at the gay bar, gay bar, gay bar. Wow, at the gay bar." Thank you, Aspie. I don't understand it, but I love it.
Get the fuck back on Discord, Aspie.
Yeah, get back here, Aspie. What's wrong with you? I love you. Cal Clay says, "Hey Nick, last night's stream just cut off. How so?" I have no idea. It shouldn't. I'll go into and look at it, but I don't know. Cal Clay also says, "Never mind. It's all good as of now. Just YouTube taking the piss." Oh, thank you. I won't look at it. Cal Clay says, "The Loved Ones horror movie that is memorable plus plus." Yeah, someone mentioned that, probably you. Yesterday, we'll look into it. Tonight, we're watching Kickboxer, baby. Andrew War Snowboard says, "If Spectre is Dolezal, I'm Jason Kidd." Cal Clay says, I
get that reference.
Cal Clay says, "Think your guest looks like Cabbage Patch Kid." Oh, there you go. That's nice. You look like a Cabbage Patch Kid, apparently.
I feel attacked.
BTL video production. Everybody loves Cabbage Patch Kids, and their faces are smooth.
Yeah, that's why I feel attacked.
Oh, true.
Both of those things are not true about me.
They are disregarding your natural condition, and that is rude. BTL video
this is libel, and I'm calling the police.
Yeah. Don't do it in Atlanta. BTL video production says, "That story made me sick to my stomach. I not only hope the family gets restitution, I hope there is blood. Where are the riots for this kid? I'd get behind burning down their houses, taking their stuff, ruining their lives." You should have a visceral reaction to it because it's grossly unjust. Kalinka Pavlova says, "Mayo is fucking great." Mayo is delicious.
Okay. That's okay. She's from New Zealand. She doesn't matter.
Yeah, but what kind of white are you if you hate mayo?
Somebody who's already fat and doesn't need help getting fatter.
My uncle described the creation of mayo as eggs and sadness. Like mayo's egg whites and sadness. That's how you make it.
They're not wrong.
Yeah. Wally says, "Doctor, how can we treat our daughter? Have you tried having all of your rights stripped and letting us utterly destroy your child?" Exactly.
This is a novel medical treatment we're going to try.
Yeah. Yeah. Aspie reminds us that Kalinka is brown, though. She needs the mayo to be whiter. Timothy Reaper says, "Home delivery service for pedos, #cancel Germany." And Germany should be World War III for that one. Bloody Thumb says, "The GI specialist who does my colonoscopy is Dr. Ramaj. Figured you would find that Dr. Ramage." Figured you would find that as funny as I do. Also, I only heard part of the painting minis. Yeah, that's Wednesday of next week. Around noon, I'll be on Az's show, Heel versus Babyface, and Heel will be teaching me how to paint minis. Nexi says, "So Tifa Goon pwned while crowd yell, 'Gonna kill you.' Dudas hit with skateboard plus Sharpshee in ventilated goon hand at Bullocks _ dog Zed Twitter. Thoughts about self-defense, spelling equals bag word filter." I know what you're talking about. You're talking about that guy who is at a rally. He got chased away from the rally, and 3 people were bashing on him. One dude grabs a skateboard and hits him, and he pulls out a gun and straight up annihilates that guy with, I think it was 4 shots. 4 shots right into him. And
right in the X-ring. I couldn't have done it better myself.
Yeah, he mitigated that situation effectively. Legal thoughts on self-defense, 100% justified. If you are being swarmed by people who are screaming, "I'm going to kill you," and someone hits you with a fucking skateboard, I can't think of a state where you cannot pull a gun at that point and shoot him. Now, I've seen some people saying, what about the video earlier where he was seen throwing a woman down? Let me just suggest that watching the full context of the video that I've seen, he does not actually throw a woman down as his provocation. It is people swarm him and attack him, and he responds to that. And even if he did, he is attempting to retreat from the scene, and he is being pursued by 3 people. A lot of people get this wrong. Instigating a conflict through some level of force is not a death sentence to be beaten to death. It is not. It may mitigate your ability to use a pre-trial dismissal motion based on stand your ground or based on self-defense. That might occur. However, if your instigation of force is mild and the response to you shoving someone, hey motherfucker, you shove them, and then they pull out a knife and start stabbing you, you have a right at that point to pull out a gun and shoot them, because that's a disproportionate use of force. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I see Ranked Midget said New Mexico has no stand your ground law. He's screwed. That's not really true. Massachusetts has no stand your ground law. But if you're defending yourself or another and you use deadly force that is commensurate or equal to the force being used, there is no violation of the law. It's, for lack of a better term, it's justifiable homicide. And that's what it'll be ruled. It is a justifiable homicide. It's very rare that you'll see something like that and there are criminal charges pressed. I don't think there is any case that they could make a criminal case that is going to see him actually go to trial. I'm not speaking on the civil case, though.
The other thing, he wasn't standing his ground. He actually did not stand his ground. He retreated until the point he was knocked down on the ground. And the standard for a duty to retreat in almost every state that has a duty to retreat, it is where once your back is to a physical wall, you are no longer under a duty to retreat. If you are prone if you are on your back on the ground and people are hitting you, preventing you from standing, you no longer at that point have a duty to retreat. So at the moment that he is down and still being hit by these people, his duty to retreat has been satisfied in its entirety. This isn't a stand your ground case at all. It's literally a justifiable use of deadly force case. And you would be hard pressed to find a judge who says 3 people hitting you screaming, "I am going to kill you," doesn't manifest a reasonable fear of imminent death or grievous bodily harm at that point.
This isn't like a Warski aims, get the fuck back moment. He actually tried to disengage. He actively tried to disengage from people who were threatening him. They chased him. Yeah. And once, it's one of the things I learned in my criminal justice is once the first hit connects with you and you've got more people, at that point, you learn in the military as well. At that point, all bets are off.
All he has to do is testify. I was in fear for my life because I was getting hit by a mob screaming, "We're going to kill you." And no juror on earth is going to go, you know what? That's not reasonable fear of imminent death. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. But anyway, let's move on. Luminaire says Dungeons and Dragons bent the knee and went full soy. D&D has been like, I love D&D, but it Wizards of the Coast is full soy for a while. That's not really
now
surprising.
Paizo is. now
Yep.
Paizo is.
Paizo's been full soy for a while too. Guys, if you want RPG products that are not full soy, Frog God Games. Frog God Games. Make them big. Make them, the social justice people fucking hate Frog God Games already. Make them big. They have classic RPG stuff. They have all sorts of modules, and I think they have GURPS or something like that. Maybe not. Maybe it's not them, but they have a lot of stuff. So check out Frog God Games. Matt Field says Child Protective Services are fucking plague. I agree. Hunter King says, I'm so angry. This is the kind of stuff that makes me think that maybe we should burn this whole thing down. I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. Shadows King 101 says, maybe it's okay to burn some places down. Calclay says, Nick, if I hear any more, you're going to have to defend me after I show them I know how to do a vivisection on a live subject, and not sorry for saying it. God. Calclay also says, word of warning from personal experience. If a child tells a social worker when they wet the bed, they stay with parents, they will claim sexual abuse. Yeah. Yep. That is one of the signs that social workers recognize as sexual abuse is wetting the bed, even if it has nothing to do with sexual abuse. Silverwolf0080 says, how the hell did the jury side with the hospital? Were they all literally mentally challenged? Perhaps they were all related to Chuck. No, it's the authority bias. I call it a police bias most of the time, but it really does come into play with doctors, hospitals, and agents of the state in general. You're like, oh, these people are employed by the state. They must not be retarded. Newsflash, lots of people employed by the state are dumber than anyone you've ever met. They're just people. They have just as much of a chance as being smart and dumb as anybody else you meet, like your grocer. Your grocer's probably smarter because they're running a business. Bad Vibe says, Rekieta Law, okay, where's my flashy thingy? I don't know what you mean. Michael Chavez says, if this happened to a fellow Marine, bodies would be dropping. No one important says, hey,
I've been saying this. What's going on with Lucas Gerhardt? You're fucking with a Marine's kid. And that guy, what? He's a Vietnam vet with a combat.
30-year retired Marine colonel, Mark.
You don't fuck with a service member's kid. Don't ever do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be respectful of the family, but as their case gets to a point, I'm gonna see if I can get Mark or Lucas on the show. I do have a line to Mark now, which is pretty cool because that is some bullshit happening to him. No one important says, hey Nick in chat, so I remember yesterday making fun of Ron blocking his dad after one bad interaction. Gave me the motive to go back and talk to my best friend, and we made up. Thank you. Never be a Ron. Never be a Ron. Ever. Is the kid safe? Are you talking about Justina? Justina is now safe in the custody of her parents, but she's likely suffered permanent injury from the stopping of her treatment for a year. It's really sad. Why is your Discord called Pegsplaining? You got to ask the admins, probably because of the Preston stream. Siren Jack says,
because we're pegsplaining the interwebs.
That's true. Siren Jag says, dude, why haven't we watched They Live yet? Because I've only done 2 movies so far. Give me a break. Nick Hex says, in Lemon voice, when Attila the Hun drinks a gallon of rum in his tummy tum, me likey that. That's a weird one. Cal Clay says, so I have a digital copy of that movie. Link where? It'll be on Twitch TV /Rekieta Law. Cal Clay says, Spectre, good luck. I'm Canadian. You're white. Attack win. I don't know what that means. Bad Vibe says, at Spectre, a yellow bird with an orange bill was sitting on my windowsill.
Little yellow birdie with a little yellow bill landed on my windowsill. I'm not going to finish it.
Oh, okay. That's a Marine thing. Count Clay says, was wrong, Spectre. You look like Bunsen Muppet. LMAO. Bunsen Muppet.
Beaker. Bunsen and Beaker.
Oh. That guy?
The little fat. No. Beaker's the one that said meep meep. Okay. Bunsen's the one that had the glasses.
Oh, gotcha. Bad Vibe says, Rekieta Law, the worst aspects of the foster system is how frequently foster parents have abused the children worse. Well, I know there are great foster families. There are many bad. GFL guessing which. Yeah, it's impossible. All right, guys. That's the show. Spectre, do you want to shill anything before you go? I've got your channel link in the description to Spectre 06 Gaming.
No, I mean, No, nothing to really show. I mean, I had fun. That's all that matters. I had fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you brought this up. I had fun too. This is a case that I've been looking at for years and years and years before I was even officially a lawyer. So thank you for suggesting it and getting the documents. I'll be following this as it goes through the appeals process. If I could get a Pelletier on the phone, I would, or on the show, I would love to do so. But I always want to respect people's ongoing suits, and I don't want to jeopardize anything with that. So we'll probably wait until some resolution comes about with that. But I will certainly see if that's a possibility. Yeah, guys, thank you for this, and make sure you spread the word about their case, because it is absolutely disgusting to see people go through this at the hands of the state. Calculate says, only jokes. Don't dankula me for bad humor. And I'm saying I have a link for a digital copy of The Loved Ones if you wanted. Spect. And it says, then he said, my super chat is incomplete. Ignore Spect. So, for The Loved Ones. Unfortunately, for the Twitch watch parties, it has to be on Amazon Prime. And they have to actually further offer it for the watch parties, which most stuff is. But I can't do it other than that. Otherwise, I'll get DMCA'd and copyright struck into oblivion. And final chat. Matt the B says, here's how... Wow. What?
You just like blew up in my freaking ears.
I did? That's weird. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Take that. Further, final chat. Matt the B says, here's how smart government authorities are. We're making a new building. All departments must be paperless within 6 months. No one managed it. So now there's 5 to 7-ish garbage cans per floor, but every cubicle has its own paper-only recycling. There you go, guys. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Spectre, thank you for bringing this, and thanks for coming on and talking through it with me. I really enjoyed it. Bad Vibe says, Rekieta Law, Men in Black reference, quote, groups of people are dumb, individuals are smarter. It's not just Men in Black. There's other people, but I'll give credit to Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. All right, guys, make sure you come on Twitch. I'll be there in just a minute, even though it's late, and we're gonna have a fun time watching Kickboxer. Have a good night. Angry Baneling says, stop blowing up in people's ears, Nick. Woo, lad. No, I only blow up in people's ears. Oral sex is the best. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks, Spectre. Have a good night, guys. Peace. Don't leave right away, Spectre. I'd like to say goodbye in private. Peace.
All right.
Peace.